Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we have a very special lesson for you. This is actually the first in a series of lessons about interview skills.
That's right. For 10 lessons that you will hear once a week for the next 10 weeks, we're going to take a look at an interview, a job interview, and we're going to take you step by step throughout the whole interview process, as well as teaching you some useful words and phrases that you can use next time you're at a job interview in English.
Exactly. So pay attention. Today is the first day we're going to be entering the office, and we're going to learn some things that are important for talking to your future employer or meeting people in an interview.
Okay.
Come in.
Mr. Parsons?
Ah, you must be Rebecca. Please do come in.
Thank you for making some time to see me, Mr. Parsons. It's a pleasure to meet you finally.
The pleasure's all mine, Rebecca. Have a seat, please. Now, would you like any refreshments, tea, or coffee?
A coffee would be lovely, thank you. Black, no sugar.
No problem. Sally, can we have 2 coffees, please? 1, no milk or sugar.
Mr. Parsons?
So, Rebecca, I understand you had a first interview with Miss Childs last week?
Yes, that's correct. She filled me in on the details of the job on the telephone.
Great. Well, I'm glad to say she recommended you for a second interview, and here we are. Perhaps we can start by discussing your background and resume details a little.
Yes, of course.
All right, we're back. So now let's take a look at language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
So one of the first things that you're offered when you go to interview at a company is refreshments.
Right. Would you like any refreshments?
This sounds complicated, but it's actually a very simple word for beverages or drinks.
Right. So that's why he offered her tea or coffee.
Right. So refreshments are cola, coffee, tea. But how do you answer this? If I say, would you like any refreshments, Marco?
You can say, yes, water would be fine, thank you.
Okay, water would be fine. Or I'd like a Coke.
Or I'd like a cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee. Great. Refreshments are drinks. And after that, the characters are talking about the details of the job. So what are these details? How are they different from the job itself?
Well, the details of the job are the specific points about the job. So, for example, if she applied for a job as a receptionist, the details of the job would be answering the phones, taking messages, receiving people at the office. Those are the main details of the job.
Also, we need someone who works from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., someone who is going to come 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. So the details are basically more information about something.
Right, the specific information about a general topic. And it's not only related to work, the details can be of many, many things.
Right, so if I ask you about your details, Marco, you could maybe tell me your phone number, your address.
My full name.
Full name or birthday. So these are details.
Okay. And, well, after they talked about the details of the job, after she explained that she received the details of the job by phone, Mr. Parsons said that she was recommended for a second interview.
So Rebecca is coming to the office for a second time. She already had one interview, and the woman she talked to the first time recommended her for a second interview. So the verb here is to recommend.
Right. And you can recommend a person, an object, a movie, and that's basically you are saying that this is good and that it's worth seeing, it's worth buying, it's worth interviewing.
For example, I really like the movie Avatar. Marco, I recommend you see it.
Okay, or I can say, Catherine recommended the movie Avatar.
Okay, so Catherine liked it, Catherine decided, Catherine suggested or told Marco it would be good.
That's right. So to recommend. And then Mr. Parsons said that they're going to start discussing her background.
Well, background, think of the word back. That means behind. This usually means a person's history at a job or at many jobs, or even their educational background, information about where they studied.
That's right. So the background, maybe a person's background is, as you said, all their history, work, study, many different things, even maybe seminars or courses that they assisted.
Or even just their personal history. For example, Marco, you speak English like an American. What's your background? Because I know you're not American.
Right, I'm from Ecuador.
Okay, background. So that means someone's personal history.
That's right. And hand in hand with background, we have a piece of paper that usually you send into an employer to apply for a job. This is the famous resume.
Resume. So you're right, Marco. A resume is a document. In this case, it is a document that lists your work history, your working background. And it's a very important part of applying for a job. And usually you send your resume before you go for the interview so that the employer can look and see, is this person qualified? How old are they? What's their work history?
And, well, very similar to a resume, you may have heard a CV.
That's right. A CV is a lot like a resume. It stands for curriculum C, vitae V, CV, and it's more detailed. It has more details about a person's academic or study history.
Exactly. So a resume, I guess it's very similar to a summary of your work background, whereas a CV will have more details about your education, maybe more details about your work background, what did you do, objectives, etc.
Great. So maybe we should listen to today's dialogue one more time, and when we come back, we'll be talking about some of the interesting phrases we heard in today's dialogue.
Come in.
Mr. Parsons?
Ah, you must be Rebecca. Please do come in.
Thank you for making some time to see me, Mr. Parsons. It's a pleasure to meet you finally.
The pleasure's all mine, Rebecca. Have a seat, please. Now, would you like any refreshments, tea, or coffee?
A coffee would be lovely, thank you. Black, no sugar.
No problem. Sally, can we have 2 coffees, please? 1, no milk or sugar.
Certainly, Mr. Parsons.
So, Rebecca, I understand you had a first interview with Miss Childs last week?
Yes, that's correct. She filled me in on the details of the job on the telephone.
Great. Well, I'm glad to say she recommended you for a second interview, and here we are. Perhaps we can start by discussing your background and resume details a little.
Yes, of course.
All right, we're back. So now we have 3 phrases that we're going to take a look at on Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
All right, so when Rebecca arrived, Mr. Parsons said, "Ah, you must be Rebecca. Please do come in."
Okay, so you could say, please come in. This means, please come into my office, or come on in.
Right.
But here, the interesting thing about this is the word do.
Right, he's using the verb do, and it may sound wrong. It may sound like it's unnecessary because you do have a phrasal verb there already, come in. So you can just say, please come in. But when he says, please do come in, he is emphasizing on her to come in.
That's right. So this is a very polite way to invite someone inside. You can also say, please do have a seat.
All right, so you are emphasizing in a very polite way to please sit down.
That's right. Please do come in.
So there are many other ways that you can use it. So for example, if you really want your friend to call you sometime next time you're in town, you say, please do call me next time you're in town.
Please do. You could even say it afterwards, simply please do, for emphasis.
Right, so if I say, hey, Catherine, I'm going to call you next time I'm in Shanghai.
Please do.
There we go.
So that means please do call.
All right, so please do come in. Please do call. All right.
After that, Rebecca says, thank you for making some time to see me, Mr. Parsons. So she is happy that Mr. Parsons is available and wants to talk to her. This is a very common phrase that means, thank you so much for interviewing me.
Right. So I guess it's kind of a way of saying, look, I know that you're a busy person and that you don't have very much time, so thank you for making some time to see me.
Right. So this isn't just about interviews. You could say this phrase for meeting with a client or meeting with even a friend. You could say, hey, Marco, I know you were really busy last week, but thank you so much for making some time to see me.
Right. So you're just basically saying, I understand that you're very busy, but I appreciate that you made some time to see me. All right. And well, she said, you know what? It's a pleasure to meet you. But Mr. Parsons replied by saying, hey, the pleasure's all mine.
All right, another very, very polite phrase that you hear a lot. Maybe some of you have heard the phrase, it's a pleasure to meet you before, but the response, the answer is very interesting. The pleasure is all mine.
Right.
So this stands for the pleasure is all mine.
Right. And I guess it's the most appropriate response if somebody says, it's a pleasure to meet you. Because if you don't say this, I think you may sound a little bit arrogant.
Well, you could say it's a pleasure to meet you too.
Right.
But this is another way to answer the person, because you don't always want to say it's a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure to meet you too.
Right.
This is a way to say something different and to say, well, the pleasure's all mine.
Right. But it's very important to answer something, right? Because if I say it's a pleasure to meet you and you say thank you, it's like,
no, that is a little bit arrogant. So
Right.
you have to say something.
Right.
And we recommend that you say this or you just say the same thing back. So it's nice to meet you. Oh, it's nice to meet you too.
Right. Okay, and our last phrase is actually when they were talking about, again, the details of the job, and she said that Miss Childs filled her in on the details. She said, she filled me in on the details of the job on the telephone.
Okay, so this is an interesting verb, to fill in, or in this case, to fill someone in, to fill me in, to fill you in. This basically means to tell someone about something.
Right.
Or if I know a little bit of information, but not a lot of information about something, this way you're telling me more so I understand it better.
Right, I'm giving you all the information. So maybe somebody is talking about a rumor in the office, and you go and you say, hey, fill me in on the gossip.
All right, so you want to know all about it.
Right.
Or for example, Marco, we're having a party next Sunday, but I'll have to fill you in on the details around Friday.
Okay, because you don't have all the information right now.
Yeah, I don't know yet what time or where.
Okay, so to fill someone in is to give them all the information or to give them more information.
Fill me in.
Fill me in. All right. Why don't we take a look at our dialogue for the last time, and we'll be back in a little bit.
Come in.
Mr. Parsons?
Ah, you must be Rebecca. Please do come in.
Thank you for making some time to see me, Mr. Parsons. It's a pleasure to meet you finally.
The pleasure's all mine, Rebecca. Have a seat, please. Now, would you like any refreshments, tea, or coffee?
A coffee would be lovely, thank you. Black, no sugar.
No problem. Sally, can we have 2 coffees, please? 1, no milk or sugar.
Certainly, Mr. Parsons.
So, Rebecca, I understand you had a first interview with Miss Childs last week?
Yes, that's correct. She filled me in on the details of the job on the telephone.
Great. Well, I'm glad to say she recommended you for a second interview, and here we are. Perhaps we can start by discussing your background and resume details a little.
Yes, of course.
All right, so as we mentioned, this is the first part of a 10-part series of the interview series. And this is going to be very, very helpful. As you saw in this first part, we're just taking a look at some basic vocab and phrases that you can use when you're just introducing yourself. You're just getting started in the interview.
So what we're going to be looking at later on is talking about yourself, answering questions. But many people don't realize that one of the most important parts of the interview is the very, very beginning. Because some psychologists say that we make a decision about a person or how we like a person within the first, 30 seconds of talking to them.
Yeah.
So it's important that you speak confidently and that you say some of these English phrases comfortably. You know, it's a pleasure to meet you. Oh, the pleasure's mine. These little things will really help you.
That's right. And I think as talking about introductions and how this woman arrived to the office, I think one of the key things that we would recommend is to look that person in the eye and give a firm handshake, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people actually realize how important this is. It's very, very important because as an interviewer, the person or the manager who's interviewing you, I think you can tell a lot from a person if somebody gives you a very flimsy handshake or doesn't look you in the eye.
That's right. Well, I think in many ways people think, oh, this person is not confident, or this person is uncomfortable, or this person is hiding something.
Yeah.
And so it's important really to be yourself, to smile, to look at a person in the eyes, especially in a lot of like American companies or Canadian companies. I know in other parts of the world, smiling with a stranger is unusual or maybe unacceptable. But in America, it means I'm confident. Here I am. Here's my name. Nice to meet you. It's a very important part of an introduction.
Yes, very true. So we actually want to hear what you think. How important for you is a handshake, a firm handshake, looking someone in the eye, or how do interviews work in your country?
Let us know, and we hope that this is helpful for you in the future if you're looking for jobs or you just want to practice your English.
That's right. So if you have any other questions or doubts, we're at englishpod.com. We'll see everyone there.
Bye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Drinks. Refreshment. A meeting at which people talk to each other. Interview. A short document describing your education, work history. Resume. Suggest. Recommend. The experiences, knowledge, education of a person. Background. Manage to find time. Make some time. It's happy to. It's a pleasure to. Give me more information. Fill me in.
Let's try that faster.
Manage to find time. Make some time. Give me more information. Fill me in. Drinks. Refreshment. The experiences, knowledge, education of a person. Background. A meeting at which people talk to each other. Interview. Suggest. Recommend. It's happy to. It's a pleasure to. A short document describing your education, work history. Resume.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Make some time. Can you make some time to meet with me this afternoon? Make some time. Please make time to finish that product today. It's very important. Make some time. I have to make some time to finish that report tomorrow. It's a pleasure to. It's a pleasure to visit the Beijing office again. It's a pleasure to. Mr. Johnson, I've heard so much about you. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. It's a pleasure to. It's a pleasure to be here in New York for the opening ceremony. Fill me in. Amanda wasn't at the marketing meeting yesterday. Can you fill her in on what we discussed? Fill me in. Joe and Stacy are getting married. Come on, fill me in. I want details. Fill me in. I missed what Mr. Wang said about the new system. Would you fill me in, please? Recommend. Avatar is a great movie. I totally recommend it. Recommend. There are many ways we can solve this problem, but I recommend taking a direct approach. Recommend. I would like to recommend Scott for a promotion, but he has been late so often I don't think I can. Background. Jill has a strong background in IT. She studied computer science in university and spent 2 years working for Microsoft. Background. Let's take your picture against a plain white background so it will be easier to edit the photo. Background. President Obama has a varied cultural background. His father is Kenyan, his mother is from Kansas, and he grew up in Indonesia and Hawaii.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we're bringing you another elementary level lesson as a part of our interview series.
That's right. This is part 2 of the interview series. In the last part, we talked about, a brief introduction when you arrive to a job interview. But on this occasion, we're going to talk a little bit about yourself and your life.
That's right. So this is the most personal part, I think, of an interview. Let's take a listen to today's dialogue, and we'll be back in a moment to talk more about the things that you've heard.
Now, Miss Childs passed on your resume to me, and I've had a chance to look it over. I must say, I'm quite impressed.
Thank you very much. I've tried to keep it short and clear. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Well, yes, I do have a number of questions, but perhaps first you could give me a brief overview. I'd like to get a little bit of an idea of your background.
Yes, of course. Well, as you can see from the resume, I'm 27 and grew up in Brooklyn, New York, although our family moved to London when I was quite young, at around 16.
Ah, I see. So you were actually educated in Europe?
Yes, precisely. Although I was born in the US, I would definitely call London home. But as you see, I've actually spent a lot of my life moving from country to country. My father was in the oil business before he retired, so we also spent a number of years in Saudi Arabia too.
Very interesting. So it seems you had quite an adventurous childhood.
Absolutely. We were never still for too long, but now I'm really looking to settle down.
I see. Okay, well, let's move on to discuss your education, shall we?
Sure.
All right, we're back. So obviously this person had a very interesting life, and they use some pretty interesting words there. So why don't we take a look at 5 key words that we have prepared for you on Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
All right, so the first word that we have is right when Mr. Parsons talked to Miss Childs, and he said that he was very impressed with her resume.
All right, so someone says, I'm impressed when they think that something that you did or something about you is very interesting or good or better than most people's.
That's right. So you're kind of amazed. You're kind of, you're like, wow, right? And so this is an adjective. I am impressed.
That's right. So teachers sometimes say this. Maybe when you do really, really, really well on a test, they say, hey, Marco, I'm really impressed. You got 99%. Parents say this to friends, family. So basically, this is a way to say, good job. Wow.
Right, and there's also a verb. So this is the adjective, to be impressed, and the verb form would be to impress someone. So that's obviously, if you impress your teacher by studying, your teacher will be impressed.
That's right. And following that, Mr. Parson has some questions about Miss Child's background.
That's right. He asked her for a brief overview of her background. So we have two interesting words there. An overview. What is an overview?
An overview is like a summary. It's basically a way to ask for someone to give you a lot of information in very few words.
That's right. So you don't really want too much details. You don't want somebody to tell you their life in detail. You just want a brief summary.
Right. So not, I was born on August 11th in 1979 and I was, and then I went into this. No, this is basic, simple, this is where I'm from. This is where I went to school, the end.
Mm-hmm. And, well, he wanted a brief overview of her background. What exactly is her background?
Well, think about the word back. Okay. That means behind. Or in this case, background is your personal history. So you could ask someone, what's your background? It means, where are you from? Mm-hmm. Or, what have you been doing up to now in your life?
That's right. And precisely when he asked her about her background, now she's starting to talk about her life. In general terms, as we said, it's an overview. So she said that she's 27 and she's from Brooklyn, etc. So she starts giving very general information about herself and her life.
Exactly. So when she starts to do this, Mr. Parson has more specific questions about her life because he wants to know details. So he asks her then where she was educated. So this phrase, to be educated, is very important.
That's right. So he's asking her, you studied in Europe.
That's right. To be educated means to have someone teach you or to go to school somewhere. So, for example, I was educated in America. Where were you educated, Marco?
I was educated in Chile.
Wow. So you've been educated in a number of different places, right? At home and in a different country.
Right. But you can also specify the university name, right? For example, I was educated at Harvard. Can you say that?
You can. Or I was educated at a number of different schools.
So you can say, I studied or I was educated. All right. And, well, apparently she was moving around from Europe, United States. So Mr. Parsons says, wow, it seems that you had an adventurous childhood.
Okay, this is a great adjective, adventurous. You can say a person is adventurous. So Marco is very adventurous. He likes to jump out of airplanes. But you can also say that an experience is adventurous, like moving around a lot as a child.
Right. So I guess adventurous can go hand in hand with exciting or very interesting, full of emotion.
That's right.
Okay.
Adventure, adventurous.
So a person can be adventurous, and we actually had a lesson about this when we describe personalities. You can say someone is adventurous.
Exactly.
All right, very good. So 5 key words that we just took a look at. Why don't we go back, listen to the dialogue again, and we'll be back to talk a little bit more on Fluency Builder.
Now, Miss Childs passed on your resume to me, and I've had a chance to look it over. I must say, I'm quite impressed.
Thank you very much. I've tried to keep it short and clear. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Well, yes, I do have a number of questions, but perhaps first you could give me a brief overview. I'd like to get a little bit of an idea of your background.
Yes, of course. Well, as you can see from the resume, I'm 27 and grew up in Brooklyn, New York, although our family moved to London when I was quite young, at around 16.
Ah, I see. So you were actually educated in Europe?
Yes, precisely. Although I was born in the US, I would definitely call London home. But as you see, I've actually spent a lot of my life moving from country to country. My father was in the oil business before he retired, so we also spent a number of years in Saudi Arabia too.
Very interesting. So it seems you had quite an adventurous childhood.
Absolutely. We were never still for too long, but now I'm really looking to settle down.
I see. Okay, well, let's move on to discuss your education, shall we?
Sure.
All right, we're back. So we have 4 phrases for you on Fluency Builder prepared, and let's start on with the first one.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, so at the very beginning, Mr. Parsons is continuing what he was saying in our first part. So Mr. Parsons is talking about Rebecca's resume, and he says, the secretary, she passed it on to me. So this verb, to pass on, this is really important. What does this mean?
Well, the secretary, Miss Childs, passed on Rebecca's resume. That basically means Miss Childs received it, and she didn't keep it. She passed it on, or she gave it to another person, in this case, Mr. Parsons.
Okay, so this shows that something doesn't stay with one person, like you said, Marco, but it moves from one person to another person. So, for example, my mother told me to pass this message on to you. The message is not for me, it's for you.
I think also with physical traits, like maybe if your mother had green eyes, you can maybe say, my mom passed on her eye color onto me.
That's right. So you got it from her.
All right. So that's what happened with the resume. And he said, well, she passed it on, and I've had the chance to look it over.
Okay. So think about this as a chunk, as a group of words that we use together. To look something over, we can say, hey, Marco, when you have a minute, can you look this over for me?
Okay. So that means to examine or to take a look.
Take a look at, that's right. So to look something over or to look it over.
All right, so basically to examine, maybe in close detail, right? You actually take the time to read it.
That's right.
Okay. And then later on, they started talking about her background. As we know, she was from Brooklyn. She grew up in Brooklyn, and then she moved to London. And so Rebecca described how she spent most of her life moving from country to country.
Okay, from country to country. This means that she moved to many different countries. Okay, so if I live in America all my life, I never moved from country to country. You can say this about many different things, from place to place, from town to town. It means that you go from one place to another.
That's right. So as you said, if you replace the noun country, you can say from town to town. You can even say from house to house. I went from house to house asking for money.
That's right. So from to
Exactly. So from something to something. And for our final phrase, she was talking about how she's moved around so much that she's actually ready to settle down.
Okay, to settle down. This is a really important phrase, and I think it's something a lot of people do when they're maybe in their 30s or 40s. They don't want to move anymore. So to settle down means to stay in one place.
Exactly. So you stay in one place. And it can have a lot of different meanings as well. For example, to get married, many people say that's settling down. It means you want to stay in one place and have a family.
Or to buy a house, because it means that you will live there for a long time.
Exactly. So to settle down. So a lot of interesting phrases there, a lot of words, and this is, as we said, part 2 of our series. So I think it would be worthy for us to listen to this dialogue one last time, and we'll be back to talk a little bit more.
Now, Miss Childs passed on your resume to me, and I've had a chance to look it over. I must say, I'm quite impressed.
Thank you very much. I've tried to keep it short and clear. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Well, yes, I do have a number of questions, but perhaps first you could give me a brief overview. I'd like to get a little bit of an idea of your background.
Yes, of course. Well, as you can see from the resume, I'm 27 and grew up in Brooklyn, New York, although our family moved to London when I was quite young, at around 16.
Ah, I see. So you were actually educated in Europe?
Yes, precisely. Although I was born in the US, I would definitely call London home. But as you see, I've actually spent a lot of my life moving from country to country. My father was in the oil business before he retired, so we also spent a number of years in Saudi Arabia too.
Very interesting. So it seems you had quite an adventurous childhood.
Absolutely. We were never still for too long, but now I'm really looking to settle down.
I see. Okay, well, let's move on to discuss your education, shall we?
Sure.
All right, we're back. So this is part 2 of a 10-part series of the interviews. Now, we just talked about the background, and I think there are different ways of talking about your background, right? This is maybe your personal background?
That's right. So you can talk about your personal history, your personal background, where you were born, where you were educated, where you grew up. But a lot of times we also have to talk about other parts of our background, like our work background, or like next week, our educational background.
That's right. So part 3, we're going to take a look at your educational background. And it's going to be very important because I think in many interviews, people have a hard time describing what they studied or maybe describing exactly what they did during university or college or master's degree or something.
Exactly. And we're not talking about elementary school or high school. We're specifically talking about university background here. So, like you're saying, Marco, what was your major? What was your minor? What was your area of study? These are great, great, great phrases that are very important for an interview. And so we hope that if you have any questions, you'll let us know. Our website is englishpod.com, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
That's right. Okay, so we'll see everyone on the website, and until next time.
Bye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Cause someone to feel admiration. Impress. A general description. A brief overview. To calm down. Settle down. Hand in. Pass on. Feel relaxed. Feel free.
Let's try that faster.
Hand in. Pass on. A general description. A brief overview. Feel relaxed. Feel free. To calm down. Settle down. Cause someone to feel admiration. Impress.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
A brief overview. George, would you give us a brief overview of what the marketing team has been working on this week? A brief overview. This guidebook doesn't have a lot of detailed information about Paris. It just provides a brief overview. A brief overview. Before we talk about the specific job description, let me give you a brief overview of what we do here at ABC Corporation. Impress. Well, Jeff, I'm really impressed with your photography skills. These pictures are beautiful. Impress. On my first trip to Hong Kong, I was really impressed with the efficiency of the subway system. Impress. Good job with that sales meeting, Ellen. I think the client was really impressed. Pass on. We're all going to the Sichuan restaurant for lunch. Pass it on. We want to have a large group. Pass on. Linda, after you add the most recent QC figures to the report, please pass it on to Mr. Wang. Pass on. Thanks for your feedback. I'll pass your suggestions on to the design team. Feel free. Excuse me, may I use your bathroom? Oh, please, feel free. Feel free. Welcome to our art gallery. Feel free to look around. Feel free. After listening to this English Pod lesson, please feel free to post your questions and comments on our website. Settle down. Children, settle down, please. It's time to begin class. Settle down. He was something of a playboy in the past, but now he's ready to get married and settle down. Settle down. After living in the city so long, I'd really like to settle down in a small town.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we've got part 3 of an exciting series we've got for you at the elementary level.
That's right. As you may remember, this is a series that we're studying all about a job interview. So in the first part, we just talked about the introduction. The second part was talking about your personal background. And now we're going to talk about your educational background.
Okay, so the key topic here today is education. Let's take a listen to this dialogue, and we'll be back in a minute.
Now, if I look here, I see that you completed a BA in English.
Yes, that's right. After graduating from high school in New York, I attended York University in the UK. My major was English and my minor was business. I completed my BA in 2004.
Yes, I'm pleased to see that you also got a distinction.
Yes, that's right. I've always enjoyed studying. My friends say I'm a bit of a bookworm, but my father always pushed us to succeed at school.
Well, it looks like his encouragement paid off, Rebecca. So how about extracurricular activities at university?
Well, I've always been keen on writing, so I became the editor for the university student newspaper, which I really loved. Also, I volunteered for a group called Shelter to help the homeless in New York.
What did that involve?
Providing warm meals and shelter, especially in the winter months. I found it really fulfilling to be part of that group.
I'm sure. Okay, now let's move on to your work experience, shall we?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, we're back. So the girl was talking about her education, about her university, and she talked about some very interesting words. So why don't we take a look at those and language takeaway?
Language takeaway.
So, at the very beginning, Mr. Parsons, who's the interviewer here, asks Rebecca about her background and says, I see that you completed your BA in English.
Okay, so we have an acronym there, a BA.
This stands for bachelor's, or usually a 4-year degree at the beginning of your university studies.
That's right. So it's a type of degree, right? A BA is, as you say, your bachelor's degree, and it usually takes 4 years.
That's right. You have a Bachelor of the Arts, BA, but you also have a Bachelor of Science, which is a BS. So as you can tell, one is for the arts, like art history, music, things like that. The other is for sciences, like physics or chemistry.
Very good. All right. So she has a BA in English. So she obviously studied the English language in university. Then she moved on to talk about her major and minor.
That's right. So, as you know, a degree is not just a degree in the arts in general, but it usually has a focus or an area of focus. So, her area of focus, her major was English. This is the most important part of her studies. So many of her courses, most of her courses at university were in English.
That's right, but she also has a minor in business studies.
Okay, that means she also studied business and business studies. That's not as important as her English studies, but it was very much a part of her degree.
So let's say that when she was studying in university, 70% of what she studied was related to her major, English. And maybe 30% was her minor, was business studies.
That's right. And she goes on to talk about herself and her friends who describe her as a bookworm. This is a really nice adjective and very common in English.
That's right. So if you are a bookworm or you describe yourself as a bookworm, it means that you like to study a lot. You like to read a lot of books.
So bookworm is just like what you said, is someone who really likes to read, someone who's always reading, maybe someone who lives in the library.
So that's why you call them a bookworm. They live in the library or they read a lot of books. All right, so that's the noun bookworm. Now moving on to other parts of university. When you're studying, you're not only studying English or sciences and things like that. Sometimes you also do other activities or other things.
That's right. So you have your schoolwork, which is during school. It's English and business studies for this woman, Rebecca. But you also have what you do outside of school. This is called extracurricular activities. So that's a long word, extracurricular.
That's right. So extracurricular means it's not in the curriculum, right?
That's right. It's outside of school.
So it's not really like a specific subject or something that's related to your studies. If you don't do extracurricular activities, it's okay, right?
That's right. A lot of people don't do any extracurricular activities, but many people do. For example, writing for the school newspaper or playing soccer.
Exactly. So those are extracurricular activities. Anything that you want to do in university apart from studying, playing soccer, writing, etc.
And it's not just university. You can do these in high school as well.
Okay, very good. So those are the words that we have picked out for you today. I think they're very specific to education. And I think we should go back, listen to the dialogue again, and we'll be back in a bit with Fluency Builder.
Now, if I look here, I see that you completed a BA in English.
Yes, that's right. After graduating from high school in New York, I attended York University in the UK. My major was English and my minor was business. I completed my BA in 2004.
Yes, I'm pleased to see that you also got a distinction.
Yes, that's right. I've always enjoyed studying. My friends say I'm a bit of a bookworm, but my father always pushed us to succeed at school.
Well, it looks like his encouragement paid off, Rebecca. So how about extracurricular activities at university?
Well, I've always been keen on writing, so I became the editor for the university student newspaper, which I really loved. Also, I volunteered for a group called Shelter to help the homeless in New York.
What did that involve?
Providing warm meals and shelter, especially in the winter months. I found it really fulfilling to be part of that group.
I'm sure. Okay, now let's move on to your work experience, shall we?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, we're back. So now let's start off with our first phrase on Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
So Rebecca's talking about her father and her friends, and she says she's a bookworm, but her father always pushed us, that means her and her family members, her siblings, to succeed. And this verb, to push us, to push someone, is very important because it's not the same as like to push a door.
Right. So it's not physically that you're pushing somebody. It's actually to motivate somebody or to inspire someone to become better at something.
That's right. So to push someone is to encourage them to do something bad. It's not always a good thing. So
right.
She was always pushing me to do what she wanted to do, not what I wanted to do. That means someone's always trying to influence you or to get you to do something.
Exactly. So as you say, to push someone is to influence them, to motivate them, to encourage them to do something good or bad. Well, and Mr. Parsons agreed with her dad's encouragement, and he said, well, it really paid off.
Okay, this is a great verbal phrase, to pay off. This means to have benefits. Okay, so all of your hard work really paid off.
So you can see the results. You can see the positive results of your hard work. It paid off.
You could even ask someone, all that hard work, did it pay off?
Right. So that you're basically asking, was it worth it?
Yeah.
Okay, to pay off. And, well, when she was talking about extracurricular activities, she said she was always keen on writing.
Now, I think this is more common among British people to say you're keen on something, but it basically means to like. So remember the phrase keen on. This is the preposition here, keen on. I'm keen on writing.
So can you say that you are keen on someone?
Yes, you can. That means you like someone, maybe romantically. Okay,
so it's kind of, as Catherine said, more of a British thing, but it's correct, and you can use it in replacement of to like. I think it also sounds a little bit more formal. Instead of saying, well, I've always liked writing, if she says, well, I've always been keen on writing, I think it sounds nice.
A little smarter.
Yeah. All right, and our last word, it's actually an interesting word, and it might be a little bit complicated to understand, but when she said that, volunteering was very fulfilling and to be part of a group.
Okay, fulfilling sounds a lot like the word filling, but you shouldn't confuse these two because the meaning is very different, right? So something that is fulfilling makes you feel really good. Maybe you don't make money from it or you don't get a lot of praise from it, but it still makes you feel happy about life for yourself or something.
So you get satisfaction. Now notice the pronunciation. You don't say fulfilling.
No, you say fulfilling.
Fulfilling. So the L there is kind of silent.
Kind of optional. But maybe you could ask someone, what do you find fulfilling in your life?
Or you can ask, do you think your job is fulfilling?
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of great words there, a lot of interesting things related to education and not so much. Why don't we go back and listen to the dialogue one last time?
Now, if I look here, I see that you completed a BA in English.
Yes, that's right. After graduating from high school in New York, I attended York University in the UK. My major was English and my minor was business. I completed my BA in 2004.
Yes, I'm pleased to see that you also got a distinction.
Yes, that's right. I've always enjoyed studying. My friends say I'm a bit of a bookworm, but my father always pushed us to succeed at school.
Well, it looks like his encouragement paid off, Rebecca. So how about extracurricular activities at university?
Well, I've always been keen on writing, so I became the editor for the university student newspaper, which I really loved. Also, I volunteered for a group called Shelter to help the homeless in New York.
What did that involve?
Providing warm meals and shelter, especially in the winter months. I found it really fulfilling to be part of that group.
I'm sure. Okay, now let's move on to your work experience, shall we?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, so talking about going to university, I think they used a really specific verb there that's worth mentioning. She said, I attended York University in the UK. So to attend.
That's right. So you can say I studied at York University, but the more formal way of saying that I was a student at York University is to say I attended that school. So to attend means to be a student at that place.
Okay. And what about you, Catherine? Did you participate in any extracurricular activities back in college?
I did. I participated in a lot of extracurricular activities. I was in the orchestra at my university, and I played in a lot of musical groups. I also was in a discussion group for politics, and the India-Pakistan dialogue group, and I was in a number of different film clubs. So we would talk about film, and I even helped out at the TV station for my university.
Oh, wow. The university had a TV station.
Yeah, so all of it was student-directed. So basically, the students controlled the TV station.
That's really interesting. I think these types of extracurricular activities are, as many as these, are maybe not as common in other places, or maybe they're a little bit different. I know, for example, in the U.S., you have all these political ones and a lot of sports and things like that, but you also have very strange far ones like I don't know, like there's a cooking club and there's even like a gardening club. I've heard
astronomy club.
There's all types of extracurricular activities.
Well, what's really nice about a lot of American universities is that there are many resources that students can use. And so maybe the reason there's a cooking club is because there are massive kitchens the students can use to cook food and experiment, and even teachers and professors sometimes come to help. So it's a really nice environment because everyone's teaching each other.
Right. No, it's very, very interesting, and we're actually curious to know how universities work in your country. Are you able to have a minor in a subject? Because many universities don't offer this option.
Right, they just have one major and that's all.
Right, or maybe are you able to participate in extracurricular activities?
Like sports or radio or writing, let us know. Our website is englishpod.com.
All right, so we'll see you guys there.
Bye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Bachelor of Arts. BA. The main subject studied in a college. Major. A second subject studied in college. Minor. Excellence. Distinction. A person who likes reading and studying. Bookworm. To affect positively. Pay off. Extra activities. Extracurricular. Willing or eager to do something. Keen on. Want to do something without being forced or pay. Volunteer. Contain. Involve. Full of happiness and satisfaction. Fulfilling. To encourage or persuade someone to do something. Push.
Let's try that faster.
Willing or eager to do something. Keen on. Want to do something without being forced or pay. Volunteer. A second subject studied in college. Minor. Full of happiness and satisfaction. Fulfilling. Extra activities. Extracurricular. To affect positively. Pay off. Bachelor of Arts. BA. Contain. Involve. Excellence. Distinction. A person who likes reading and studying. Bookworm. To encourage or persuade someone to do something. Push. The main subject studied in a college. Major.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Major. You're almost finished with your first year of college. Have you decided on a major yet? Major. Mark graduated with a double major in philosophy and East Asian studies. Major. I attended the University of Washington where I majored in economics. Distinction. It may be difficult for some English learners to hear the distinction between the words eyes and ice. Distinction. Only the best of the best students at British universities receive distinction. Distinction. And Bo Shishun had the distinction of being the tallest man in the world. Keen on. I think Tom is keen on Sherry. He's always flirting with her. Keen on. I'd rather not go to McDonald's for lunch. I'm not keen on fast food. Keen on. My boss is really keen on golf these days, so we bought him monogrammed golf balls as a gift. Pay off. All that studying really paid off. I got 100% on my final exam. Pay off. My daughter doesn't like going to violin lessons 3 times a week, but I tell her that all this practice will pay off someday. Pay off. We took a risk with this marketing campaign, but it really paid off. Our customer base nearly doubled. Extracurricular. What extracurricular activities did you participate in while you were in college? Extracurricular. Many students in Asian countries have to study so much they have no time for extracurricular activities. Extracurricular. I'm a happily married man with no extracurricular relationships.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we have a new lesson in our series about interviewing for a new job. This is, of course, at the elementary level.
That's right. So this is part 4 of our interview series. Remember, we are taking a look each week at giving you tips and also the proper language for when you have an interview in English. And on this occasion, we're going to talk about our work experience.
Okay, you'll remember we talked a little bit about educational experience and educational background. Well, today is all about your last couple of jobs.
All right, so I think we should just listen to the dialogue for the first time, and we'll be back in a bit with language takeaway.
Right, Rebecca. Now I see that after graduating from university, your first job was...
For a local paper in York called the York Herald. Actually, I started with them as an intern. I was really keen on getting some experience in journalism, and this seemed like a good first step.
Certainly. And after your internship?
They seemed impressed and offered me a position as a junior local news reporter. I ended up staying 2 years there, actually. I was in charge of the sports news section of the newspaper. I really enjoyed it there, and it really helped me build my skills.
Yes, I see. But you decided to leave them in 2006, right?
Yes, that's right. My husband and I moved to London, and so I managed to find a position with a national newspaper based in London.
The London Weekly, right?
Yes. In some ways, it was a step down from my previous job, but it did offer me much better prospects for the future.
All right, we're back. So now we've picked out a couple of key words, and we're going to take a look at those now on Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
So, Marco, a lot of people don't start out as a professional with a job. They have something else first. What is this?
That's right. A very popular way to begin your work experience. You become an intern, or you work as an intern.
Okay, so the name of the job, we could say, is intern. I'm an intern, or he's an intern at my company.
Exactly. So usually interns work at a company. Usually they're not paid. And or if they are, it's a very, very little pay. And the purpose of an internship, or to work as an intern, is to gain experience.
That's right. So it's basically like a study opportunity for a job that you know you want. I could be an intern at a media company, and I could learn all about media, but it's not really a full job.
Exactly. And usually it serves as an opportunity to maybe continue working at that company in a full-time job. So you become an intern, and the noun or what you are doing is called an internship.
So I'm an intern, but what I have is an internship.
Right.
It's like saying I have a job. I have an internship, but I am an intern.
Exactly. All right, so we've covered those 2 words. Now, let's move on to when she's describing her work experience in the York Herald, and she described it as a very good first step.
Okay, so a first step, you think about your foot, your step, you're moving. It means the very first thing you do when you're heading in some direction.
Right, and professionally, I guess your first steps are maybe becoming an intern.
Right, or you could say my first step was working in the mail room at this big movie studio, but later I became, famous movie producer.
Exactly. So that's kind of like the way that you begin your professional life. And, then they started talking about the newspapers, and actually Rebecca was offered a position as a junior local news reporter.
Okay, so junior means usually lower ranking or not experienced. Someone who is just starting out. And of course, after junior, we have senior.
Right.
So a senior news reporter is someone who's worked for many, many years as a reporter.
Usually, I guess, a junior news reporter would make less money than a senior news reporter.
Exactly. You could also say junior executive or senior executive.
Junior manager.
These are ways of describing length of experience. And in this case, she's junior, but what kind of job does she have? Well, she is a news reporter for local issues.
Okay, so she's a local news reporter. Now, what exactly does that mean if you're a local news reporter or for local issues?
Well, if I live in Chicago and I'm a local news reporter, I only write or report the news about Chicago.
Okay.
It's a way of describing the things in my area. So it's the opposite of our next phrase, national news reporter.
Okay, so if you are a national news reporter or a national manager of maybe a company, then that means that you oversee things in the whole country.
That's right. So local is my city or my county, but in the case of national, we're talking about the whole country. Nation, national. So national is an adjective. But we could even go further than this. What if I am a reporter and I talk about foreign countries? I talk about France and South Africa and even Iceland.
Then I guess you would be an international news reporter.
Exactly.
And I guess also at the executive level, you can have an international marketing manager, right?
That's right. International marketing manager, national marketing manager. These are very important ways to divide work, to say he is the international manager, here's the national manager. This tells you the kind of the size of this person's job.
Exactly. Okay. So now more or less you know how these jobs can be divided: junior, senior, national, local, etc. So I think we should go back to the dialogue. Let's listen to this dialogue again, and we'll be back in a bit.
Right, Rebecca. Now I see that after graduating from university, your first job was...
For a local paper in York called the York Herald. Actually, I started with them as an intern. I was really keen on getting some experience in journalism, and this seemed like a good first step.
Certainly. And after your internship?
They seemed impressed and offered me a position as a junior local news reporter. I ended up staying 2 years there, actually. I was in charge of the sports news section of the newspaper. I really enjoyed it there, and it really helped me build my skills.
Yes, I see. But you decided to leave them in 2006, right?
Yes, that's right. My husband and I moved to London, and so I managed to find a position with a national newspaper based in London.
The London Weekly, right?
Yes. In some ways it was a step down from my previous job, but it did offer me much better prospects for the future.
All right, so now let's start with a couple of phrases and phrasal verbs on Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, in today's dialogue, we heard a lot of really wonderful phrases, Marco. Some of them are ways of making your experiences sound better, more professional even. For example, this first one, Rebecca's talking about her first job in New York, and she says, I was in charge of the sports news section. In charge of.
So that phrase, I was in charge of, or to be in charge of, what does this describe?
This describes responsibility. Basically, she's saying, I was responsible for, or I had to manage the sports news section. She's taking credit for this job that was important.
Okay, so this is a key phrase because this is the typical phrase that you use to describe your responsibilities or to describe what you did in your previous job position or your previous job.
So, right, I could ask you, when you were in marketing, what were you in charge of?
Right, and then you say, well, I was in charge of, and then you explain your responsibilities or what you did.
I was in charge of our national accounts, or I was in charge of the local news.
Exactly. So this is a very simple phrase. Just remember it. I was in charge of, and then you can start explaining what were your responsibilities, what you did in your previous job. All right, moving on now towards the end of that paragraph, Rebecca says that, well, being in charge of the sports news section was really fun, and it really helped her build my skills. It really helped me build my skills.
So to build your skills, or in this case, I build my skills, means that I have some skills, but maybe they're not really developed. Maybe, I just finished college. I want more experience. Well, in that time during my first job, I build my skills. I become better at writing or having interviews, things like that.
Exactly. So when you build your skills, you kind of improve your abilities or you gain more experience. All right. And another interesting phrase coming up here when Rebecca talked about moving to London with her husband, she said, I managed to find a position with a national newspaper.
Okay, so I managed to, or you could say to manage to do something. This is a really interesting phrase because it's another way of saying to be able to or to succeed at something.
Okay, so don't confuse it with manager or to manage people. That is also correct. Obviously, it exists. But to manage to do something is to, as you said, to be able to do something.
Right. So, for example, I was running really late yesterday and I had a ticket for a train at 5 o'clock. I thought I would miss the train, but I managed to get to the train on time. That means I was able to get on the train on time.
Exactly. Okay, so you managed to find a job. I managed to get to the train on time. I was able to. All right, and towards the end, Rebecca talked about her job at the London Weekly, and she described it as a step down from my previous job.
Okay, is this a good thing or a bad thing, Marco?
A step down in something is a bad thing. It's to reduce in level or to decrease.
Okay, so basically she's saying, listen, I had this really great job in York, and I took a new job in London, and the new job, it wasn't as good in many ways, because maybe she had less responsibility, or maybe it paid less. So this is a way of saying it wasn't as good as my last job.
Okay, so her new job was a step down from her previous job.
You could say, I think his new girlfriend's a bit of a step down, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. So usually you're comparing, right?
That's right.
You're making a comparison between something from the past to now.
Exactly.
Okay, so a step down. Why don't we go back and listen to the dialogue for the very last time, and we'll be back to talk to you in a bit.
Right, Rebecca. Now I see that after graduating from university, your first job was...
For a local paper in York called the York Herald. Actually, I started with them as an intern. I was really keen on getting some experience in journalism, and this seemed like a good first step.
Certainly. And after your internship?
They seemed impressed and offered me a position as a junior local news reporter. I ended up staying 2 years there, actually. I was in charge of the sports news section of the newspaper. I really enjoyed it there, and it really helped me build my skills.
Yes, I see. But you decided to leave them in 2006, right?
Yes, that's right. My husband and I moved to London, and so I managed to find a position with a national newspaper based in London.
The London Weekly, right?
Yes. In some ways, it was a step down from my previous job, but it did offer me much better prospects for the future.
All right, so talking about internships and interns, it seems that usually they get, it's not very exciting to become an intern because it ends up that the office people just make you, make coffee or copies and stuff like that. You're not really gaining much work experience.
That is the reputation in the United States for internships. So basically, when you agree to do an internship, sometimes you have to apply to do an internship. It's a very long process. You end up, like you say, making coffee for people or photocopying reports. And this is really boring work.
Right. I think, yeah, that is the reputation that many places have, like you say, in the United States. But also, I don't know, I guess it does seem, in a way, the only opportunity in order to be able to get into an industry or a company. Maybe it's a really good company like, I don't know, like Procter & Gamble. And how else are you going to be able to get in there with no job experience?
Well, that's right. And a lot of people know that an internship doesn't really give you work experience, but they'd still give it, they still think that it gives you some edge or some advantage when you're looking for jobs later. Because if I write down on my resume, we were talking earlier about resumes. If I write down on my resume that I was an intern at Procter & Gamble, wow, that's really impressive.
Right, it looks good. All right, so this is an interesting topic. Let us know if you were ever an intern. Maybe you started out as an internship, or maybe you're doing one now.
Was it better than we say? Did you do anything else other than making coffee? We really hope so, and we look forward to hearing about your experiences.
All right, we'll see everyone at EnglishPod.com, and until next time.
Bye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Turned out or result in. End up. Be responsible for. In charge of. Be able to. Manage to. A decrease or reduction in size or amount. Step down. A mental picture of something to come. Prospect.
Let's try that faster.
Be responsible for. In charge of. A mental picture of something to come. Prospect. Turned out or result in. End up. Be able to. Manage to. A decrease or reduction in size or amount. Step down.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
End up. If you don't start driving more carefully, you're going to end up in an accident. End up. We had meetings with several different suppliers, and we ended up choosing Acme because of their excellent customer service. End up. Which country do you think will end up winning the FIFA World Cup 2010? In charge of. This is Elizabeth. She is in charge of our Chilean customer accounts. In charge of. Annie, we would like to put you in charge of this project. In charge of. Robert has been in charge of the sales department for 3 years now. Manage to. It was difficult to keep a straight face, but I managed not to laugh. Manage to. I have so many things to do this week. I don't know how I'll manage to get through them all. Manage to. It's almost impossible to get weekend tickets to the Shanghai World Expo now, but Ben managed to get a pair. Step down. After the scandal hit the news, Mr. Williams decided to step down as mayor. Step down. Going from corporate CFO to working at a startup may seem like a step down to some, but Jackie is excited about the change. Step down. Bill Gates stepped down as CEO of Microsoft in 2000 to devote more time to creating software. Prospect. The prospect of living and working abroad is very appealing. Prospect. Your son has been accepted to 4 different universities. Wow, he has so many prospects open to him. Prospect. It's true, Q3 was rough, but I think our prospects look very good for the rest of the year.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we're going to continue in our series about job interviews.
That's right. And on this occasion, we're taking a look at part 5 of our interview series, where we explain why we left our previous job.
Okay, and so in an interview, this is a very popular question. Why did you leave your last job? Learn some tools for answering this question in today's dialogue. We're going to take a listen to it first, and we'll be back in a moment.
Okay, now I'd like to find out more about your last job. I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. To be honest, the first year was quite tough for me. I was really just treated more like an intern. I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
So, what changed?
Well, slowly but surely I proved myself, and the new editor liked me, so he promoted me to features writer.
Wow, a real step up.
Yes, I was responsible for restaurant and food reviews mostly. I spent 3 years in that position. But to be honest, it wasn't an area of journalism I wanted to stay in long term.
I see. So why did you decide to leave finally?
I just felt that the paper couldn't offer me any new opportunities. I really needed a more challenging role, to be honest.
All right, we're back, and as we saw, Rebecca handled it quite well, explaining why you left your last job, because obviously you don't want to say something like, well, I just really didn't like my company, or, the boss was a really bad guy.
Or I was fired for being lazy.
Exactly. So why don't we take a look at a couple of different words on language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Okay, so we've got some great descriptive words here. These are some adjectives. The first one is tough. So Rebecca said, to be honest, the first year was quite tough for me.
All right, so she's describing that her first year at that company where she was working, it was tough, and that means hard, difficult.
That's right. So you could say, this is a really tough situation. That means it's a difficult situation. It's hard because there's no easy answer.
Exactly. So if you describe something as tough, it means that it's very difficult. Now, there is another meaning to this where it can be that you are a strong person.
Right. So that's different because we're talking about a person, not a situation. But if you're talking about a job or an experience or even homework, like this homework is really tough, it means that it's very hard.
Exactly. Well, apart from her job being a little bit tough, she said that it was also a little bit frustrating.
Okay, so usually these things go together. If something is tough, like it's difficult, it's usually frustrating too. And so in this case, something is frustrating when it makes you unhappy or, for example, it makes you feel stressed. So something that's frustrating is not a good thing.
Exactly. So as you gave the example with the homework assignment, if you have maybe a math assignment that's very difficult and you can't solve it, you don't find the solution, then you get frustrated. You get maybe angry at yourself, or you get very angry for not being able to solve it. So that's when it's something is frustrating.
I hate being frustrated.
Exactly. Well, it's not a nice feeling, but she said that, well, it was frustrating, it was tough, but, after a while, I proved myself.
Okay, so that means that she was able to show someone that she can handle difficult things, difficult work, difficult situations. And so she said, I proved myself and the new editor liked me. So basically, she did a really good job.
Exactly. So if you prove yourself, you're showing someone that you have great ability or capabilities of solving a problem or being able to handle a difficult job.
That's right. For example, I could say, last year, Bob didn't do very well at school, but this year he really proved himself. He studied hard and he got really good grades.
Exactly. And well, Rebecca, what she got in exchange for proving herself, she got promoted.
This is great. So promotions are good things. The verb here is to promote or to be promoted. So in this case, she was promoted. You could say last year I was promoted, or he will be promoted next week. He doesn't know yet.
Exactly. Now, remember that to be promoted means to get a better position in your job. Now, as we mentioned, the verb is to promote. And you may be asking yourself why we are using the verb to be in the past, was promoted. And this is because it's an ed adjective. It's an adjective that ends in ed. So you may think it's a verb, but it's not. It's actually an adjective.
The verb here is to be.
Exactly. So I was promoted. Was is obviously our verb here, the verb to be, but promoted is an adjective that ends in ed.
Okay, and so if I'm the boss, the action I do, the verb I do, is I promote someone. So this can be a little bit tricky, but we recommend that you check out the website for more details because we have lots of examples of how to use this.
Exactly. Well, she got promoted and, she was really happy for a while, but then she said, you know what? I really needed a more challenging role, a more challenging job.
Okay, challenging is a great adjective. It means something is difficult or it gives you a challenge. So that means it's not easy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she found that her job was a little bit too easy, so she wanted something a little bit more challenging.
Okay, and so this is a really great word for job interviews in particular because you're basically saying, I want hard work. I want to prove myself. There we go again, prove. I want to show you that I'm a good employee or a hard worker, and so I want a challenge, something that's hard.
Exactly. So something that is hard is a challenge, or you want something challenging. So why don't we review these words that we've taken a look at now? Let's go back to the dialogue and listen to it again.
Okay, now I'd like to find out more about your last job. I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. To be honest, the first year was quite tough for me. I was really just treated more like an intern. I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
So, what changed?
Well, slowly but surely I proved myself, and the new editor liked me, so he promoted me to features writer.
Wow, a real step up.
Yes, I was responsible for restaurant and food reviews mostly. I spent 3 years in that position. But to be honest, it wasn't an area of journalism I wanted to stay in long term.
I see. So why did you decide to leave finally?
I just felt that the paper couldn't offer me any new opportunities. I really needed a more challenging role, to be honest.
All right, we're back. So now let's take a look at a couple of phrases we picked out for you on Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, this first phrase is unusual because it actually happens at the end of sentences. This is very, very common with people who are making small talk or who are doing interviews. This is the phrase, is that right?
So basically, you saw that in the first line, Mr. Parsons was talking to her and said, well, I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right? So he's ending the sentence with this phrase.
So he's making the sentence a question. I see that you did this. Is that right? So he's asking her to confirm the fact that he knows about her because maybe they've never really talked before. So this is a good way for him to ask her to give more details.
Exactly.
So for example, Marco, I hear that you're from Ecuador. Is that right?
That's right. So you, apart from ending the sentence like this, if maybe somebody asks you, is that right? You have to confirm. You have to say, yes, that's right. Or yes.
It's also good to elaborate, to give more details. So, yes, I'm from Ecuador. I was born there, but I've lived in the United States. This is a way to give more information because that's basically what the person's asking.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be very good if you're at a job interview and the person says, is that right? And you say, yes, that's right. And then you don't say anything else.
So, yeah, basically the point is you have to confirm or deny. You have to say, yes, that's right, or no, that's not right. And then you have to give some information about the question.
Exactly. All right, now moving on, when Rebecca, again, was talking about her job, she was saying it's tough, and I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
Okay, so this is like lost and found, like I lost my hat and I found it later.
No. This is what's interesting about this verb find. We are not actually looking for something, or we didn't actually find something we were looking for. This is kind of a realization, right?
That's right. It's like a feeling. So I find this movie boring. That means I think this movie is boring. It's the way that you're thinking about something.
That's right. Or you can say, oh, I found Paris to be quite an expensive city.
Yeah, pretty expensive. So this is your impression. This is the way that you feel about something.
Exactly. So this is another way that you can use this word to find. Now, again, when Rebecca talked about proving herself, she used a very interesting, I would say, phrase, a very popular, well-known phrase, slowly but surely.
Okay, so slowly but surely is the opposite of right away. Right? So something that happens right away is immediate. Like, I got promoted right away. But slowly but surely means after lots of time and even hard work, this good thing happened. Or it's usually a good thing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you're basically saying that you didn't do anything very quickly, but you did it very well. So slowly but surely, I finished building my home.
Right, so it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen over time. You can also say this about studying a language. At the beginning, learning English was really hard, but slowly but surely, I became fluent.
Exactly. Okay, so slowly but surely. And the last phrase that we have for you today, you may have seen that Rebecca used this phrase, to be honest, a couple of times before explaining something. So why does she say to be honest?
To be honest is sometimes something we say in English to fill some space or some time. We call it filler. But it's also a way to introduce something that's negative. So, for example, in this dialogue, she's talking about her negative experiences. My job was tough. My experience was bad. So she says, to be honest, it wasn't the best experience, but I learned from it. She's saying this to introduce some things that are maybe not positive, not happy things.
That's right. So it's another way of saying, look, I'm going to tell you the truth. It may not be something positive, but, this is what happened. So to be honest, I didn't really like my last employer or something like that.
Right. Well, you can even talk about this with your friends. So, hey, Marco, did you like that movie, Shutter Island?
To be honest, I didn't really see it.
Oh.
I fell asleep.
Or you could say, to be honest, I didn't love it. I didn't really like it.
Exactly. So it's a very good phrase, but don't overuse it. I think sometimes you get into the habit of using it all the time, and just like.
Yes.
Some people, I went to the movies yesterday, and
like, to be honest,
so try to keep these fillers as you described them to a minimum. So don't really use them too much.
Yes. Say thoughts and ideas, nice action verbs, not too much fillers, because sometimes, especially in an interview, it makes people think that you don't really know much to say.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's listen to the dialogue for the last time, and we'll be back to chat a little bit more.
Okay, now I'd like to find out more about your last job. I see you spent almost 4 years at the London Weekly. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. To be honest, the first year was quite tough for me. I was really just treated more like an intern. I didn't have many responsibilities, and I found it quite frustrating.
So, what changed?
Well, slowly but surely I proved myself, and the new editor liked me, so he promoted me to features writer.
Wow, a real step up.
Yes, I was responsible for restaurant and food reviews mostly. I spent 3 years in that position. But to be honest, it wasn't an area of journalism I wanted to stay in long term.
I see. So why did you decide to leave finally?
I just felt that the paper couldn't offer me any new opportunities. I really needed a more challenging role, to be honest.
All right, so talking about your last employer, this is a pretty ideal thing. Now, do you have any advice that you can give our listeners about describing your last job? Why did you leave your previous employer?
Well, I do have a little bit of basic job advice. I would say don't complain about your last employer. Don't say my boss was mean, my coworkers were lazy, my company was terrible, because usually as a person doing an interview, that makes you think that this person, if they work for you, will complain about you. And so I think it's important, like what Rebecca does in this dialogue, to keep it positive.
Yeah.
Every negative situation can become a positive experience. So the job was tough, but it was a good challenge, right? But she learned how to do many new things.
Exactly.
I think this is important for anybody in any language, but in English especially, to use some of these phrases and to say, I really like a challenge, or I didn't feel this was challenging enough, things like this, as opposed to, my old boss was so mean. He made me work on the weekends.
Yeah.
That company is so terrible. I mean, that kind of stuff no one wants to hear.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's not really useful because even if the company is the competitor, so you don't really get any extra points for giving them like the dirty secrets of what was going on in the company. Maybe saying, oh, my coworkers, they were just so mean to me and stuff like this.
Yeah, no, it makes you seem like a complainer.
Yeah.
And no one wants to hire a complainer.
Exactly. All right. So this is an interesting topic. We would like to hear from you. So come to EnglishPod.com and tell us, why did you leave your previous employer?
Or just let us know about some of your interview experiences or some of your interview questions. We're happy to help you out. We'll hope to see you at the website.
All right. We'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
To cause feelings of discouragement or bafflement. Frustrating. Happen gradually but inevitably or without fail. Slowly but surely. To show to have the character or ability expected. To prove oneself. Covering a relatively long period of time. Long term. A test of one's abilities or resources in a demanding but stimulating undertaking. Challenging.
Let's try that faster.
Happen gradually but inevitably or without fail. Slowly but surely. To cause feelings of discouragement or bafflement. Frustrating. Covering a relatively long period of time. Long term. To show to have the character or ability expected. To prove oneself. A test of one's abilities or resources in a demanding but stimulating undertaking. Challenging.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Frustrating. Learning a language is a difficult thing to do, and it can be frustrating at times. Frustrating. Trying to catch a cab during rush hour is always so frustrating. Frustrating. This is so frustrating. My computer keeps crashing. Slowly but surely. The world is emerging from the recession slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. Our customer base is growing slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. Slowly but surely, the elderly man walked down the street. To prove oneself. You have to prove yourself capable before the boss assigns you a project of your own. To prove oneself. The new guy did a great job on his presentation. He's really proving himself. To prove oneself. I always turn in quality work on time, but Mr. Wilson still doesn't think I've proved myself. Long term. What are your long-term goals? Long term. I don't see myself living in Hong Kong in the long term. Long term. We work hard to build long-term relationships with our customers. Challenging. I know work with Sally can be challenging at times, but she's very talented. Challenging. All right, team, this is a really challenging situation. We need to come up with a solution. Challenging. John hopes to take on a more challenging role within the company soon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and as you've probably noticed on our website, this is one of many different parts of a series all about having an interview in English. This is a job interview, and at this point, we're at about part 7.
That's right. So today what we're going to talk about is the key question whenever you're having a job interview is they ask you to describe your key strengths. And this is our word for vocabulary preview today, so let's take a look at it.
Vocabulary preview.
Okay, so you might have heard the word strength before. This is something that you're good at. And so key strength or key strengths, plural, would be things that you think are most important about you as far as the things that you do well.
That's right. So as we mentioned, your boss or your potential boss might ask you to describe your key strengths. So you're going to mention a lot of adjectives, positive adjectives, saying how good of a worker you are. So why don't we listen to our dialogue? Let's see what Rebecca has to say about her key strengths, and we'll look at those in a little bit.
Okay, Rebecca, now you've given me a good idea of your work and academic background, but what about you as a person? How would you describe your key strengths?
Well, Mr. Parsons, as I mentioned before, I'm someone who needs new challenges. I'm really focused and hardworking. I think my academic results prove this.
Yes, true. But how about other personal qualities?
Well, I believe I'm a good team player, but I can also work well independently. I'm very enthusiastic and, well, I hope my colleagues would agree. I'm fun to work with.
What would you say is your most positive quality?
That's a tough question. But I would have to say my passion. I'm really passionate about journalism and passionate about my career.
All right, so she obviously has a lot of good key strengths. Why don't we analyze a couple of those on Language Takeaway?
Language takeaway.
So one of the first things that Rebecca mentions is that she's really focused. Okay, so this word focused, what does this mean?
All right, so if a person is focused, basically you're saying that you concentrate on your work.
That's right, and someone who's focused might be very good in a noisy office or in a place that is full of distractions, like you said, because they don't stop their work and think about the noise or move around or go talk to people. Someone who is focused just sits down and can do a lot of work all at once.
That's right, so she describes herself as focused and hardworking.
So hardworking means basically what it sounds like, that someone works very hard. That means they put in a lot of hours. They can, they get their work done. They're really, really dependable.
That's right. So as you can see, we use the word hardworking together. So if you work hard, you don't say I work hard. You can say that, but if you want to use it as an adjective, you say I am hardworking.
The opposite, of course, would be lazy.
That's right. Okay. So we're focused, we're hardworking, and she also said that she is a good team player.
Okay, this is a really key phrase here because it's something that employers, so people who are hiring new staff, like to look out for, because most jobs you don't work alone, you work with other people. And so a team player is someone who works well in a group or works well with others.
That's right. So a team player, everyone wants to have a good team player working for their team, for their company. And apart from being a good team player, you also want to be enthusiastic.
That's right. So this means that you are interested in what you do. You are excited about it. It's not like, oh, God, I have to do this report. It's like, oh, wow, I get to do this report. I'm enthusiastic. I'm really interested. I'm going to put a lot of energy into it.
That's right. Okay, so an enthusiastic person not only can be about working, you can be enthusiastic about anything, about, painting your house, about going on a trip.
Exactly. Enthusiastic.
All right, and our last word for language takeaway is also a good quality to have if you are passionate about what you do or what you're doing.
So someone who is passionate about something really, really likes that thing. That means that they love to do it or love to see it. Passion is the opposite of not interested. Okay, so you're really, really emotional and excited and interested in something.
That's right. So you are passionate about something. It comes from the noun passion. So you have a passion for painting. Maybe you love to paint. So you're very passionate about painting. So a lot of great adjectives there to describe yourself in a good way. Why don't we listen to our dialogue again, and we'll be back with Fluency Builder.
Okay, Rebecca, now you've given me a good idea of your work and academic background, but what about you as a person? How would you describe your key strengths?
Well, Mr. Parsons, as I mentioned before, I'm someone who needs new challenges. I'm really focused and hardworking. I think my academic results prove this.
Yes, true, but how about other personal qualities?
Well, I believe I'm a good team player, but I can also work well independently. I'm very enthusiastic and, well, I hope my colleagues would agree. I'm fun to work with.
What would you say is your most positive quality?
That's a tough question. But I would have to say my passion. I'm really passionate about journalism and passionate about my career.
All right, so on Fluency Builder today, we've picked out 3 key phrases. Let's take a look at the first one when Rebecca said, I'm someone who needs new challenges.
Okay, so this structure, I'm someone who, is something that you hear a lot of, and you can actually fill in the end of that sentence with a number of different phrases. So in here, we heard, I'm someone who needs new challenges. We could also say, I'm someone who needs structure.
All right, so we can also change the verb, right, from needs to, I'm someone who likes a challenge. Or maybe Tracy is someone who requires a lot of attention.
Right, so this is a way to introduce a characteristic of yourself. So you're telling people something about yourself.
Okay, very good. So moving on, we also saw that Rebecca said that she is fun to work with. I'm fun to work with.
Okay, so let's just treat this like a little fixed phrase. We say this about people all the time. He's fun to work with. She's fun to work with. Or this group is really fun to work with. They're all really fun to work with.
So that means that it's not serious, that you really enjoy doing it. So it's a little fixed phrase that you can use to say that, you know, it's nice to work with Rebecca, or that she's very, you know, not serious, not a mean person.
That's right. And finally, we have a phrase at the end. Rebecca here's a question she thinks is very difficult. She calls it a tough question. And so a tough question is something that is very hard to answer.
That's right. She says, that's a tough question. So she's basically acknowledging the fact that the question is difficult, a tough question. Now we can combine this word tough with other things.
That's right. You can say it's a tough situation. That means it's a hard situation to handle. You could also say he's having a tough time. That means that right now in his life, there are many things that are difficult for him. And so tough means difficult or hard or unpleasant.
Okay, very good. So a lot of good stuff coming from Rebecca, mentioning all the positive things about her. Why don't we listen to our dialogue one last time?
Okay, Rebecca, now you've given me a good idea of your work and academic background, but what about you as a person? How would you describe your key strengths?
Well, Mr. Parsons, as I mentioned before, I'm someone who needs new challenges. I'm really focused and hardworking. I think my academic results prove this.
Yes, true, but how about other personal qualities?
Well, I believe I'm a good team player, but I can also work well independently. I'm very enthusiastic and, well, I hope my colleagues would agree. I'm fun to work with.
What would you say is your most positive quality?
That's a tough question. But I would have to say my passion. I'm really passionate about journalism and passionate about my career.
All right, so talking about key strengths, I think it's always difficult to talk about yourself and still sound a little bit humble, right? To not sound like arrogant, like saying I'm the best.
Right. Well, that's the key here, I think. You want to say really good things about yourself because you're a salesperson and you're selling your personality. But at the same time, you don't want to sound like a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the best, I'm so smart, I'm so clever. That's a little bit off-putting. It makes people uncomfortable. So I think the trick is a balance.
Right. And I guess if you use words such as this, like, you know, I'm focused, I'm hardworking, I'm independent, I have a passion for this, it makes you sound like like you're a really good worker, but you're not arrogant. You're not saying, oh, well, I'm the best of what I do or something like that.
Right. So you're basically saying these are my skills, but, obviously I'm not the only person who has these great skills.
That's right. Okay, so that's all the time we have for today. Be sure to join us next week. We're also going to have kind of part 2 of this when we talk about our weaknesses. So this time we talked about our strengths. Then we'll talk about weaknesses.
That's right. So we hope that you will check out our website, EnglishPod.com. If you have questions or comments, leave them there for us, and we'll be in touch very soon.
All right. We'll see you guys there.
Bye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
A quality that makes someone effective or useful. Strengths. Giving attention and effort to a specific task. Focus. Worked hard. Hardworking. Show the truth by some evidence. Prove. Group of people who work together to achieve a common goal. Team. Person taking part in a sporting event. Player. Good. Positive. Have a lot of interest in or passion for a particular. Passionate. Enthusiasm that one has when doing things. Passion.
Let's try that faster.
Show the truth by some evidence. Prove. Giving attention and effort to a specific task. Focus. Group of people who work together to achieve a common goal. Team. Enthusiasm that one has when doing things. Passion. Have a lot of interest in or passion for a particular. Passionate. Person taking part in a sporting event. Player. A quality that makes someone effective or useful. Strengths. Worked hard. Hardworking. Good. Positive.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Strengths. Many companies shifted strategies to focus more on their core strengths. Strengths. Our company is making great progress. We're moving from strength to strength. Strengths. Bill's greatest strength is his ability to solve problems. Focus. Everyone, please. I need you all focused on the work at hand. Focus. Don't distract Lillian. She's really focused on getting the report finished by don't. Focus. Keep your eyes focused on my finger as I move it. Hardworking. John makes up for his lack of experience by being hardworking. Hardworking. The HR department is looking for 2 hardworking engineers. Hardworking. Ants are extremely hardworking insects. Team. Some basketball stars are really talented, but they're not team players. Team. We need someone who can both work independently and be a good team player. Team. I'm just not sure Ryan has the ability to work as a team player. Passionate. Jane is really passionate about human rights issues. Passionate. How could anyone be passionate about accounting? Passionate. Their relationship was passionate but not long-lasting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we've got one more episode in our series about interview skills. This is an elementary level series, and we're here today to talk about things that you might not be very good at.
That's right. Today we're going to talk about weaknesses, and that is our word for vocabulary preview. So let's take a look at it now.
Vocabulary preview.
Okay, so what is a weakness?
A weakness is a thing or an activity or something that you're just not very good at or something that you think you can improve.
Okay, so obviously no one is perfect. And like we saw in the previous lesson, we have a lot of good things about ourselves, key strengths. And now we're going to talk about our weaknesses. Maybe you're a little bit lazy. That might be a weakness.
That's right. So weakness is the opposite of strength, and that is the topic today. So let's take a listen to today's dialogue.
Okay, Rebecca. Well, I think you've given me a clear impression of your positive qualities, but let's talk a little bit about your weaknesses.
Okay, well, it's always more difficult to describe them, isn't it?
Definitely. But if you had to pinpoint one weakness, what would it be?
Well, as I mentioned before, I do tend to get frustrated if I don't see progress in my work or career. I suppose I'm quite a restless character. My father always taught me to be a high achiever, so...
So would you say if things don't go your way at work, it could easily get you down?
Well, in a way, yes. But I must say that even if I'm not completely happy in my work, I always give 110%. I would never shirk my responsibilities. I suppose sometimes I expect too much too soon.
Well, you know, journalism is a highly competitive world, so you do need to keep pushing yourself, it's true. Okay, well, let's move on to talk about the job position here, shall we?
Yes, please.
All right, we're back. So obviously Rebecca did a very good job at talking about her weaknesses in a very positive way. So before we get into analyzing that, why don't we take a look at a couple of words she used on language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
One of the first words that Mr. Parsons used was a clear impression. So impression.
All right, so I think this is a very common word when people talk about first impressions or I get the impression. So what is an impression?
Well, an impression is like an idea or a feeling. So I can have an impression about something. It means that I don't necessarily understand it really well or I don't have experience with it, but it's an idea that I have about something.
That's right. So for example, maybe you meet somebody new and you say, I get the impression that he is a liar.
But maybe then you get to know him and he's not. So this is your idea about something or the way you feel about something. So in this case, Mr. Parsons has a clear impression of her positive qualities. That means that he has an idea or an understanding of the things that Rebecca is good at, but he wants to know more about her weaknesses.
That's right. And Mr. Parsons asked her to try and pinpoint one of her weaknesses. So this word, to pinpoint.
This is a great word. I'm not really sure where it comes from in English, but I think it's very visual. You can see what the word means. Pinpoint means to locate or identify or really be specific about something.
That's right. So maybe if you go to the doctor and you say that your back hurts, the doctor might ask you to try and pinpoint where on your back you have the pain.
That's right. So it's a way to be specific or very exact about something.
Okay, so if she had to pinpoint something, she said, well, I do get a little bit frustrated.
Okay, so frustrated is a way you feel. I feel frustrated. He is frustrated. It's basically a feeling that you get when you have to do something, but you don't think you can do it. Or maybe something annoys you and you get frustrated. For example, when people tap like this, and I'm working, I get frustrated because it's a distraction.
Okay.
So everyone has different things that frustrate them.
Now, if we take a look at this word, it is actually an adjective, and we usually use it. You get frustrated, or as you said, you feel frustrated. So remember, it may look like a verb, but it's actually an adjective that ends in ed, frustrated, to get frustrated.
He got frustrated, or we feel very frustrated.
Okay. And, well, apart from being frustrated, she also said that she is a restless character.
Okay, so someone is restless if they don't like to stay in one place all the time. That means someone who wants to move around or to go places or to travel or to see new things is restless.
That's right. So she has a restless character. That means she likes to move around. She doesn't like to stand still in one place.
Maybe she gets bored very easily.
Okay, so that's somebody that would be restless. But moving on, she also said that she doesn't like to shirk her responsibilities.
Okay, you often hear these words go together. So responsibilities are things that we need to do, right? Things that other people expect us to do. To shirk a responsibility means to not do something that you're supposed to do. It means to avoid responsibility or to push it away.
Okay, so it's a verb, to shirk your responsibilities. You shouldn't shirk your responsibilities.
That's right.
All right, so a lot of interesting key words there. Why don't we listen to the dialogue again, and we'll be back with Fluency Builder.
Okay, Rebecca. Well, I think you've given me a clear impression of your positive qualities, but let's talk a little bit about your weaknesses.
Okay, well, it's always more difficult to describe them, isn't it?
Definitely. But if you had to pinpoint one weakness, what would it be?
Well, as I mentioned before, I do tend to get frustrated if I don't see progress in my work or career. I suppose I'm quite a restless character. My father always taught me to be a high achiever, so...
So would you say if things don't go your way at work, it could easily get you down?
Well, in a way, yes. But I must say that even if I'm not completely happy in my work, I always give 110%. I would never shirk my responsibilities. I suppose sometimes I expect too much too soon.
Well, you know, journalism is a highly competitive world, so you do need to keep pushing yourself, it's true. Okay, well, let's move on to talk about the job position here, shall we?
Yes, please.
So we've picked out 3 key phrases for you on Fluency Builder. Let's take a look at those now. Starting with Mr. Parsons saying, so would you say if things don't go your way at work, it could easily get you down? 2 great phrases there.
That's right. So the first phrase, if things don't go your way. So this is kind of a funny phrase when you think about it because they go your way like to me or
Right.
What is my way? This basically means if things do not happen in a way that makes you happy or in a way that you expect. Okay, so we could say he lost his job, he couldn't pay his bills, things just didn't go his way.
That's right. So things are not happening as he planned or as he expected.
You can also say the opposite. So he won the lottery and he also met a really beautiful girl who wanted to be his girlfriend. Things were going his way.
Okay, very good. So if things are going your way, it's good. If things aren't going your way, then it's bad.
That's right.
Okay, and so if things aren't going Rebecca's way, does that mean that it could easily get her down?
Okay, so to get you down or to get someone down means to make you sad, upset, or frustrated like that word we just heard. So you could ask someone like, Marco, what gets you down?
Rainy days.
That's a good one. Yeah, rainy days get me down too.
So it's kind of a way of saying what makes you sad or depressed or what makes you unhappy.
Or in this case, if something doesn't happen as you planned it, if it doesn't go your way, does that make you sad? Does that get you down?
Okay, very good. So a very good question there. And she responded that kind of, yeah, that does happen, but she always tries to give 110%.
Okay, so this is a really funny phrase because you think, I can give everything I have. I can work really hard, and that's 100%. But we say 110% means you do more than you can. It's like pushing yourself more than is possible.
That's right. So this is a very common phrase in sports, in business. People are saying, for example, I always remember my coach saying, I want you guys to give me 110% out there. That means like I really want you to try very hard to do as much as possible.
Even more than your best, more than you think you can do.
Exactly. So again, it refers to the effort that you put into something. It can be in business, sports, anything.
And she's basically saying, I always do more than my best. I do as much as humanly possible.
That's right. Okay, so a lot of great stuff there from Rebecca. Why don't we listen to her one last time, and we'll be back in a bit.
Okay, Rebecca. Well, I think you've given me a clear impression of your positive qualities, but let's talk a little bit about your weaknesses.
Okay, well, it's always more difficult to describe them, isn't it?
Definitely. But if you had to pinpoint one weakness, what would it be?
Well, as I mentioned before, I do tend to get frustrated if I don't see progress in my work or career. I suppose I'm quite a restless character. My father always taught me to be a high achiever, so...
So would you say if things don't go your way at work, it could easily get you down?
Well, in a way, yes. But I must say that even if I'm not completely happy in my work, I always give 110%. I would never shirk my responsibilities. I suppose sometimes I expect too much too soon.
Well, you know journalism is a highly competitive world, so you do need to keep pushing yourself, it's true. Okay, well let's move on to talk about the job position here, shall we?
Yes, please.
All right, so talking about weaknesses, I think one of the common mistakes when people talk about weaknesses is they say they work too much, and everyone says you should never say that in an interview.
Yeah, I think it's a bad way to talk about yourself, because a boss or an employer really wants to hear a real weakness. And I work too hard is a way of saying, ugh, I have no weaknesses. I'm actually really, really perfect. And I just think it's a lazy answer. So maybe you should avoid saying I work too hard and really focus on things that you do have to work on. And then I think the key is to say that I know this is something that I have a hard time with. I know this is a weakness, and I'm trying to improve it.
Yeah, I remember in some of the interviews I've had, I think my common answer was, sometimes I'm very late. I'm not very punctual. So, but you know, it's a real weakness, and well, it may seem like difficult, but then you give it a little spin by saying, yeah, I'm sometimes not very punctual, but then I try to make up for it, maybe staying more time at the office, or sometimes I try to wake up a little bit earlier and make it on time. I don't know, something like that.
Right. So the key there is just to show that you know it's a problem and that you're trying to work on it.
Yeah. So this is actually the hardest part for me of an interview, talking about yourself in a negative way, because obviously you want to get the job, so you want to make sure that the employer has a good idea of yourself, but it's hard.
I think it's the hardest part for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just you.
Yeah, it's hard. So this is an interesting topic. Why don't you practice and come to our website, englishpod.com, and on our comments section, why don't you tell us what your weaknesses are?
That's right. We hope to hear from you. Of course, you can also share with us your strengths on our lesson about strengths. But in this one, I recommend everyone practice this because it will come up at some point, and it's good to get the practice in. So englishpod.com. We hope to see you there.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
A personal defect or failing. Weakness. To locate or describe exactly or precisely. To pinpoint. Proceed according to one's plans or wishes. Go someone's way. To exhaust, discourage, or depress someone. Get someone down. To avoid or neglect. To shirk. The feelings one has after a specific event. Impression. Upset. Frustrated.
Let's try that faster.
To avoid or neglect. To shirk. To locate or describe exactly or precisely. To pinpoint. A personal defect or failing. Weakness. Upset. Frustrated. To exhaust, discourage, or depress someone. Get someone down. Proceed according to one's plans or wishes. Go someone's way. The feelings one has after a specific event. Impression.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Weakness. I have a weakness for chocolate. Weakness. Let's discuss the program's strengths and weaknesses. Weakness. Impatience is a weakness that I'm working to overcome. To pinpoint. Can the tech team pinpoint exactly where the problem lies? To pinpoint. Let's try to pinpoint the areas where we need to improve. To pinpoint. I need to prioritize my to-do list. Would you help me pinpoint the items that are the most important? Go someone's way. Jessica can be immature at times. She gets upset if things don't go her way. Go someone's way. Your alarm didn't go off and your taxi got in an accident. Things just aren't going your way this morning. Go someone's way. I'm so frustrated. Nothing is going my way. Get someone down. Oh, don't let Cheryl get you down. She can be critical at times, but she means well. Get someone down. Man, this weather is so gloomy. It's really getting me down. Get someone down. All the pressure at work got her down and she became depressed. To shirk. Derek does as little work as possible and often shirks his responsibilities. To shirk. You can't shirk your duties. You're the master of ceremonies. We need you. To shirk. He left his wife and family, shirking his parental responsibilities.
Hello, English learners, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine, and today we have another episode of our interview series lessons.
That's right. Today we're taking a look at a very important aspect of an interview. We're talking about salary and money.
That's right. So this is the end of the interview when we're starting to talk about details of the job. Let's check this out, listen to the dialogue one time, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about what's going on.
Okay, well, I'm sure you have a number of questions to ask me regarding the position.
Yes, well, Miss Childs did give me an overview of the position over the phone, but there were some details I'd like to clarify.
Well, feel free to ask me anything, and I'll try to fill in the details.
Could I first ask about the remuneration package?
Yes, of course, that's quite an important point, isn't it? As a junior sub-editor, we offer a starting salary of 150,000 Hong Kong dollars per annum. This doesn't include a generous housing allowance also.
I understand. And are there other bonuses included?
Well, apart from full health insurance, we do offer a company staff bonus scheme linked to readership numbers. But we could go through all the details of that at a later date.
Well, Mr. Parsons, I am flexible when it comes to salary. The opportunity to work in Hong Kong with your company is the most important thing for me.
Excellent. Well, what other questions do you have, Rebecca?
All right, we're back, so let's take a look at a couple of words and phrases on language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Okay, so this first phrase is a set phrase. That means these words often go together. The phrase is remuneration package.
That's right, a remuneration package. Rebecca said, could I first ask about the remuneration package?
So what's an easier way to say this, Marco?
I guess basically the salary.
That's right. But a package means that it's not just money, it's also some of the benefits or the bonuses. So this is a way to describe how a person is paid in general.
That's right. So the remuneration package that Rebecca is being offered, Mr. Parsons said that she would get a starting salary of $150,000 per annum.
Okay, so this phrase, starting salary, is another fixed phrase. We have a lot of these today. That means these two words go together, starting salary. So salary is easy. It's the amount of money you make either per month or per week or per year. Mm-hmm. But what is a starting salary? How is that different?
Well, basically, that's the money that you would start earning in the company. But obviously, with time, it could change and you can get more money.
So this means that you will start making this much money, but it's possible that in the future you will make more. This is the starting salary.
That's right. And well, of course, as we said, it's $150,000 Hong Kong dollars per annum. So now we're specifying how often you're getting this money per annum.
So if it were per month, this might be a lot of money.
That's right.
But this is how much money she will earn per year, per annum. This comes from Latin.
Mm-hmm, that's right. So per year. So this is the remuneration package. She's getting, not only is she getting $150,000 per annum, she's also getting a housing allowance.
Okay, so many of us had allowances when we were children. This means the money that your parents gave you each week, $5 or $10. Mm-hmm. Well, a housing allowance is a little bit different. It means the money that your company gives you per month or per year to pay for your apartment or your house.
That's right. So obviously the company is saying that, look, we're going to give you a certain amount of money for you to pay for your house. You don't have to really pay for your house. We'll pay for it.
So basically, it's a benefit. It's a part of this remuneration package. You get a salary and you get money for your house. It's a pretty nice deal.
That's right. And well, also she's getting health insurance, and she is also being offered a company staff bonus scheme.
Okay, bonus scheme. A bonus is something extra. Mm-hmm. It's on top of what you normally get. But a bonus scheme indicates that the bonus changes according to how well you do.
That's right. So obviously he's specifying that the bonus scheme is linked to readership numbers.
So let's say, for example, Marco sells newspapers. Marco, you sell on a good week 100 newspapers. Mm-hmm. If you sell 150, you get a bonus of $10.
That's right.
But if you sell 200 newspapers, you get a bonus of $50.
That's right.
This is a scheme. The numbers change.
Very good. So all of this that we've just talked about, to be clear, is our remuneration package. We're talking about a salary. We're talking about a housing allowance, health insurance, and even a bonus scheme. So a package can include these things and much, much more. CEOs get bigger remuneration packages.
They do. And if you have children, sometimes a part of your package is education costs for your children, or a car, or computers, things like that.
That's right. So a lot of great stuff there, talking about salaries and, well, a little bit of negotiating it. Why don't we go back, listen to the dialogue again, and we'll be back in a bit.
Okay, well, I'm sure you have a number of questions to ask me regarding the position.
Yes, well, Miss Childs did give me an overview of the position over the phone, but there were some details I'd like to clarify.
Well, feel free to ask me anything, and I'll try to fill in the details.
Could I first ask about the remuneration package?
Yes, of course. That's quite an important point, isn't it? As a junior sub-editor, we offer a starting salary of 150,000 Hong Kong dollars per annum. This doesn't include a generous housing allowance also.
I understand. And are there other bonuses included?
Well, apart from full health insurance, we do offer a company staff bonus scheme linked to readership numbers. But we could go through all the details of that at a later date.
Well, Mr. Parsons, I am flexible when it comes to salary. The opportunity to work in Hong Kong with your company is the most important thing for me.
Excellent. Well, what other questions do you have, Rebecca?
All right, so now let's take a look at Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
So at the beginning of the dialogue, Rebecca is talking to Mr. Parsons about the job, and she says, I don't really have that many questions, but when I talked to Miss Childs about the job over the phone, there were some things she wanted to clarify. So how did she talk to her? She talked to her over the phone.
That's right. So this is a really good phrase to specify that you received information or you did business talking on the phone, not in person.
Okay, so this is a bit strange because we use the preposition over.
Mm-hmm.
You could also say I'm on the phone. That means I'm talking on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
But over the phone means by phone.
That's right.
Not by mail or email or in person, but we communicate, we talk over the phone, by phone.
So sometimes, for example, people will see a TV commercial with a nice item or device that they want to buy, and they will purchase this object, maybe a DVD player, over the phone. They will call up this number and order it.
That's right. Or you can say, I'm really sorry, Marco, but I don't feel comfortable talking about my banking details over the phone.
That's right. Okay, so that means on the phone. So then Mr. Parsons said, feel free to ask me anything. Okay, feel free to ask me anything about the job.
Okay, this is a phrase that I use all the time, and I think it's really important when you're in a business context or a work context to say, listen, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. It means don't hesitate. Don't be nervous. If you have a question, just ask it.
That's right. So feel free to ask. Don't worry about it. Just ask me. It's a very good phrase to give someone or to make someone feel more comfortable around.
Exactly.
All right. And he said that I'll try to fill in the details.
Okay, so this is an interesting phrase because fill in, on a form, for example, means put your name in a box or fill in some numbers. But here, the details, we think maybe I don't know what the details are. So to fill them in means to fill in gaps or some blanks. So I don't know all the details. Please tell me the information so that I will know them.
That's right. So what he's basically saying is, I know that you have an idea or a general overview of how things are, but if you ask me, I can tell you more specific things. That's fill in the details.
Or for example, we're going to a party on Saturday night, but I don't know where the party is yet. How about on Friday, I call you to fill you in on the details.
Very good. Okay, so those are the phrases that we've prepared for you today. I think we've taken a look at a lot of great vocab. Why don't we listen to the dialogue one last time, and we'll be back to talk to you a little bit more.
Okay, well, I'm sure you have a number of questions to ask me regarding the position.
Yes, well, Miss Childs did give me an overview of the position over the phone, but there were some details I'd like to clarify.
Well, feel free to ask me anything, and I'll try to fill in the details.
Could I first ask about the remuneration package?
Yes, of course. That's quite an important point, isn't it? As a junior sub-editor, we offer a starting salary of 150,000 Hong Kong dollars per annum. This doesn't include a generous housing allowance also.
I understand. And are there other bonuses included?
Well, apart from full health insurance, we do offer a company staff bonus scheme linked to readership numbers. But we could go through all the details of that at a later date.
Well, Mr. Parsons, I am flexible when it comes to salary. The opportunity to work in Hong Kong with your company is the most important thing for me.
Excellent. Well, what other questions do you have, Rebecca?
All right, so talking about salaries and remuneration packages. Now, is this a common word to talk about remuneration?
Yes, it is. It basically means the way that you are paid for the work that you do. So remuneration, it sounds like a big, long word. But in America, I think we also just talk about salary or compensation.
Compensation packages. Okay, so now when we talk about remuneration, we don't necessarily always talk about money, like in this case, right? We can receive other benefits.
That's right. And so a lot of times people think of the important parts of remuneration, not just to be the salary, but also to be the benefits. And so benefits are not the money. They're the other stuff. They're health care. We said earlier, a housing allowance, even bonuses and things like that, or education for your children. These are extras, and these are a part of the package.
Now, what would you prefer? To have a good remuneration package, like these other additional benefits, with a low salary? Or would you prefer to have a high salary with not many of these benefits?
Well, I think that it's nice to get the benefits and a lower salary, because oftentimes at a company, like a big company, the company can get really good rates on healthcare. So if I have to pay for my healthcare with my big salary, maybe it will cost me more money. But if my company pays with the company rate, that means the amount that they pay, then maybe they can help me pay for these things much cheaper. And so in the end, I make more money.
Yeah. Actually, I've heard some companies that offer great remuneration packages. Like if you have children, as you said, they would pay for their education. But many times they would even pay for their childcare, like maybe a nanny. Some of the managers would receive maybe a fuel bonus, so they would get, I don't know, $200 extra a month for fuel for their car if they drive to work. I think companies can get a little bit creative, and it's not that much that they're actually spending, but you take it as to being a really good benefit.
Well, that's right. And it makes you more, I think, happy to work for that company, because you feel like they're taking care of you. Not
That's
just
right.
they're giving you money. They're actually taking care of you and your family.
That's right. So we're actually a little bit curious to know if how remuneration packages work in your company or maybe in your country.
That's right. So please let us know. You obviously don't have to tell us how much money you earn. But if you want to tell us how these things work, where you come from, our website is englishpod.com. We'll see you there.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Money and benefits given to someone for the work. Remuneration package. Each year. Per annum. Money that a company provides for rent of a house. Housing allowance. Able to change or to do different things. Flexible. To study or look at something in a careful way. Go through.
Let's try that faster.
To study or look at something in a careful way. Go through. Each year. Per annum. Able to change or to do different things. Flexible. Money and benefits given to someone for the work. Remuneration package. Money that a company provides for rent of a house. Housing allowance.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Housing allowance. This company doesn't offer a housing allowance, but the salary more than makes up for it. Housing allowance. MNCs don't usually offer housing allowance to employees hired locally. Housing allowance. And how much is the housing allowance you offer? Per annum. Molly from HR will have to explain our bonus scheme to you. Per annum. The bonus scheme is designed to reward only the highest achieving employees. Per annum. We will be making some changes to the bonus scheme this year. Flexible. I have a flexible working schedule. Flexible. I'm afraid the company is really not flexible when it comes to working hours. Flexible. When it comes to change, many people are not flexible. Go through. Do you have a few minutes to go through the quarterly report? Go through. I'll ask Angela to go through the new company policy with us. Go through. Brent has already gone through the preliminary information. Remuneration package. Please feel free to help yourself to coffee, tea, or whatever you'd like. Remuneration package. Feel free to interrupt me anytime with questions. Remuneration package. I wish I felt free to speak with my boss on this matter, but I don't know how she'd react.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and you've been with us for a little while. You've probably heard some of our interview series already. Well, this is one of the later episodes in that series.
That's right. We're at part number 9. We're reaching the end of our interview. And on this occasion, we're going to ask our employer a little bit of more information about the company and, more importantly, about the job.
Well, this is a very important step. Like you say, it's at the end of the interview, so we're going to find out more details about the job. Let's take a listen to today's dialogue. We'll be back in a moment to talk more about it.
Could you tell me a little about the organisation? For example, how big is your office here?
Well, in total we have around 150 employees based in Hong Kong, with another 400 in our head office in Beijing. The news desk staff in Hong Kong has around 80 staff.
I see. And how about the working hours?
Well, as you know, Rebecca, in journalism, work hours are not exactly 9 to 5. You could be on call at any time, but we do have to work very unsociable hours at times.
Well, I'm used to that, Mr. Parsons, so that's not really a shock for me.
Good, as long as you understand that.
And when do you need to fill the vacancy, Mr. Parsons?
Yesterday, but no. We are hoping to start from the beginning of next month.
That sounds ideal.
All right, we're back. So it's obviously a very difficult job, and she asked some very key questions. So why don't we take a look at a couple of the words and phrases used there on language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
The first word that we have here for language takeaway is workforce.
That's right, a workforce, the company's workforce. And that basically means all the employees that we have working for us.
That might not be in one office.
That's right.
Many companies have 2, 3, even 100 offices. So the workforce means all the people who work for the company combined.
That's right. So a workforce. And, well, she asked about the workforce, and, well, it's obviously a pretty big company, 150 employees. But he also mentioned that the news desk staff in Hong Kong comprises around 80 people or 80 staff.
So this verb to comprise, or in this case, it comprises, means to make up or to account for.
Mm-hmm. It's a very nice word to say it accounts for, it makes up, it's the total.
It's the total, right. So in this case, the news desk staff has 80 people. That's a very easy way to say it. Mm-hmm. But we could say it comprises 80 people. It sounds a bit better.
That's right. Very good. So, now, obviously, she's going to be a reporter or a journalist, and he said that she should be on call at any time.
Okay, on call is a phrase that we often hear with jobs like journalism, but also medicine. So doctors have to be on call very often. This means that you don't have to be in the office, but you have to be available to come into the office. So when someone calls you and they say, we have an emergency, you have to be available.
That's right. And you see it in movies all the time. You know, doctors are on call and maybe they're already sleeping, or maybe they're out, I don't know, playing soccer with their kids, and they receive a phone call and they have to go to the hospital in that moment.
It's because they're on call.
That's because they're on call. Very good. And so obviously this is a very difficult thing for someone. And he explains that the work has very unsociable hours at times.
Okay, so you can say that the hours are unsociable. You can also say that a person is unsociable. It basically means that it's not very convenient for being a social person, or for going out with friends and having many events to go to or fun things to do in your personal life.
That's right. So if a person is unsociable, it means that maybe that person is not very outgoing, or maybe is always angry or grumpy. So that person doesn't get along well with others.
Right. But in this case, it doesn't mean that it's a grumpy job. It just means that because she might have to work at night very often or on the weekends, it's very hard to have a social life.
That's right. Okay, so obviously this job is very difficult, but in the end, she was really happy with it, and she said that sounds ideal, her starting time.
So something that's ideal if it's perfect or great or the top.
That's right. Many people talk about the ideal job, right? The perfect job.
So that's the job that you have in your mind when you think of what is the best.
That's right.
So maybe my ideal job is different from your ideal job.
That's right. So you have ideal jobs, or your ideal house, or your dream house.
Or your ideal husband.
That's right. So idealism. So why don't we listen to the dialogue again? Let's review what Rebecca and Mr. Parsons talked about, and we'll be back in a little bit with Fluency Builder.
Could you tell me a little about the organization? For example, how big is your office here?
Well, in total we have around 150 employees based in Hong Kong, with another 400 in our head office in Beijing. The news desk staff in Hong Kong has around 80 staff.
I see. And how about the working hours?
Well, as you know, Rebecca, in journalism, work hours are not exactly 9 to 5. You could be on call at any time, but we do have to work very unsociable hours at times.
Well, I'm used to that, Mr. Parsons, so that's not really a shock for me.
Good, as long as you understand that.
And when do you need to fill the vacancy, Mr. Parsons?
Yesterday, but no. We are hoping to start from the beginning of next month.
That sounds ideal.
All right, we're back. So now we have 4 phrases for you prepared on Fluency Builder.
Fluency builder.
This first phrase is something that we say all the time in English, but I think a lot of learners make mistakes when they use it. The phrase is how about.
That's
Okay.
right. So you see that Rebecca was listening to what Mr. Parsons said, and she said, and how about the working hours?
So this is a way to say, and what are the working hours? But basically, it's a way to continue the conversation. You can say this in many different ways, but it basically means, and what about? And, or please tell me about.
That's right. Now remember that many English learners mistake the phrase how about as if it were saying how are you or how is it?
No.
Okay.
You have to be following someone else in the conversation. So for example, I could say, you know what? I'm going to have a hamburger with bacon. How about you, Marco? What are you going to eat?
How about you buy me a cheeseburger?
Okay, so this is basically a way of saying, okay, well, maybe I'll have a cheeseburger, or what are you going to have?
So now it's important to say, don't ever make this question. Don't ever ask, how about your weekend?
No. How was your weekend?
That's right.
My weekend was great. How about yours?
How about yours? That's continuing the conversation, saying, mine was good. How was yours?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember that when they were talking about the work hours, he said that the work hours are not exactly 9 to 5.
Okay, so this is a kind of a set phrase we use often in English because a lot of people traditionally have worked from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. They have a break at lunch, then they go home.
That's right.
So this is a kind of measure this is a way to describe traditional working hours
That's
or
right.
traditional jobs.
So you can say, yeah, I have a really nice 9 to 5 job.
You could say, I really don't want to work a 9 to 5 job.
That's right. So you don't want a traditional job where you're working from 9 to 5.
Right. Most people, I think, work a little bit longer than that, but this is just a way of saying a traditional job.
That's right. Okay, 9 to 5 job. Now, why don't we move on to Rebecca saying that she is used to working long hours or being on call.
Right, so this construction, to be used to, I'm used to doing this, is a way to say that I already do this. This is my experience. Or I have the habit of working unusual hours.
That's right. So maybe, for example, you live in a very noisy area in your neighborhood, and somebody comes and visits you and they can't sleep because it's so noisy. You are used to it. Oh, you say, oh, I don't mind. I'm used to the noise.
But your friend who's visiting is not used to it.
Right.
They don't have this noise at home. So
That's what happens, and it can't sleep. So when you are used to something, you have the habit or you're accustomed to it.
that's right.
Okay. And what about our last phrase?
Our last phrase comes at the end, and Rebecca is talking about the start date for this job. She wants to know, when do you need to fill the vacancy?
Okay, to fill the vacancy. Now, we have this word vacancy, and that means that it's available, right?
That's right. So vacancy is an available thing. It could be a vacant place.
Like an apartment.
Like an apartment. Or in this case, a vacancy in a company. That means a job that is available.
That's right. So she is asking when she can fill the vacancy. So we use the verb fill, to fill a vacancy.
And this sounds a lot better than saying, hey, when do I start working here?
Right.
This is a polite way to say, when is the job going to begin? When do you need to fill the vacancy by?
I guess another way of saying it would be when is the starting date?
Yes.
Okay, but as we say, also fill the vacancy is a very good option. But don't say, when do I start working or when do we start?
Yeah, no, we can talk about that in a minute. Let's listen first to our dialogue one more time. We'll be back shortly.
Could you tell me a little about the organisation? For example, how big is your office here?
Well, in total we have around 150 employees based in Hong Kong, with another 400 in our head office in Beijing. The news desk staff in Hong Kong has around 80 staff.
I see. And how about the working hours?
Well, as you know, Rebecca, in journalism, work hours are not exactly 9 to 5. You could be on call at any time, but we do have to work very unsociable hours at times.
Well, I'm used to that, Mr. Parsons, so that's not really a shock for me.
Good, as long as you understand that.
And when do you need to fill the vacancy, Mr. Parsons?
Yesterday, but no. We are hoping to start from the beginning of next month.
That sounds ideal.
So talking about working hours, being on call or unsociable working hours, have you ever had a job where you've had to work maybe through the night?
Yes, I used to work in a movie theater when I was in college. I had a day job too, so it was kind of a mess. I was very unsociable. But I worked at a movie theater, and I would start working at 6 p.m. Or 5 p.m., and I would work until 2 or 3 a.m. And so it was always busiest on Friday and Saturday. And so I could never go out with my friends.
Right. So while everyone was partying, you were at the movie theater.
Exactly. Or they would come to the movies and I would sneak in and bring them popcorn.
So these unusual working hours, it's very interesting because usually, although it is a little bit more of a sacrifice, they usually pay a little bit better, right?
They do, and there are some advantages. It means that you get to sleep in really late.
Right.
You know, you don't have to wake up early.
And you have the day off, like the entire day to do something.
Exactly.
So
what about you? Have you ever worked unusual hours?
Yes. I used to work for a newspaper, and obviously people like their newspaper in the mornings. So
bright and early.
We're talking about 6 a.m. So obviously we would deliver the newspapers around 1 a.m., 2 a.m., from 1 a.m. to about 6 a.m.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty unusual and very difficult because, for example, for some people, for them it's great to see the sunrise. I've seen so many sunrises that it's not really romantic for me anymore.
We would call you a night owl, someone who's more awake at night.
That's right, and I still am. So we were really interested to know maybe if you had any unusual working hours.
Or do you work a 9 to 5?
Yeah, you do. You have a 9 to 5 job. So come to our website, englishpod.com. Let us know, and we'll see everyone there.
Bye.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
What do you think? How about? Employees. Staff. Accustomed or habituated to. Used to. To be available to work at any time. On call. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 9 to 5.
Let's try that faster.
Employees. Staff. What do you think? How about? To be available to work at any time. On call. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 9 to 5. Accustomed or habituated to. Used to.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
9 to 5. I've had a couple of part-time jobs before, but this is my first 9 to 5. 9 to 5. Nurses often work odd hours. It's not a 9 to 5 kind of job. 9 to 5. We keep the usual working hours, 9 to 5. How about? I know the shrimp dumplings are tasty here, but how about this restaurant's barbecue pork buns? How about? I'm not sure. John is right for this project. How about Helen? How about? All right. If you don't want to vacation in Thailand, how about Bali? Staff. I think we should add 3 more staff members to our sales team. Staff. Our company has a staff of about 55. Staff. The staffs of both Mercyhurst College and the University of Yunnan must cooperate fully for this plan to work. Used to. Beijing seemed really crowded to me when I first moved here, but now I'm used to it. Used to. Be patient with the new receptionist. She isn't used to our system yet. Used to. I used to drive my car to work every day, but now that I live in China, I'm not used to commuting like that anymore. On call. I have to keep my cell phone handy. I'm on call tonight. On call. Some doctors and nurses are on call around the clock. On call. Journalists are always on call. Like they say, the news never sleeps.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and if you've been following along with us recently, you'll know that we have a series about interviewing in English. And so today we have the very last episode of that series.
That's right. Today is the last part of our interview series, and we're basically just saying goodbye and doing some other things when you're leaving an interview. It's very important, the things that you say.
That's right, because this is the last thing that you're going to do in the interview, so it's what your interviewer will remember. So let's take a listen to today's dialogue, and we'll be back in a moment.
Well, Rebecca, is there anything else you need to know for now?
I don't think so, Mr. Parsons. I think you have covered all the main points for me.
Okay, well, listen. Here's my business card with my mobile number. If any other questions spring to mind, don't hesitate to contact me. Of course, you can also call Miss Childs, too.
Great. When can I expect to hear from you?
Well, we are finishing the short list interviews tomorrow, so we will certainly have a decision made by early next week. Miss Childs will call you to discuss more on Monday or Tuesday. How does that sound?
That sounds perfect. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me, Mr. Parsons.
The pleasure's all mine, Rebecca.
I hope to hear from you very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, Rebecca. Goodbye.
All right, great. So really good things from Rebecca. She said some very interesting things, key things there. So why don't we take a look at those on Language Takeaway?
Language takeaway.
At the beginning of the end of the interview, Rebecca says, listen, I think you have covered all the main points for me. So this is after Mr. Parsons asks her if she has questions. And this word, covered, is very important.
That's right. So if we talk about cover, to cover the main points or to cover a topic, it means to discuss it thoroughly or to have it finished.
Right. So if I still have questions, we have not covered everything. But if I did ask all of the questions that I have, then we've covered everything. So the verb here is to cover.
That's right. Okay, and Mr. Parsons says, well, you know what? Here's my business card with my mobile number. So this word business card, key element of any interview or any business situation.
As you say, a key part of any business interaction. So a business card is a very small card, usually thick, and it has a person's name, job, phone number, and sometimes email address now on the card. So the information can change, but it's a contact card, basically, for one person.
That's right. So this is very important to have around, especially in situations like this. Okay, and moving on, he also told her that if she has any other questions, to not hesitate and to contact him.
This is a very common phrase. Don't hesitate to contact me, or don't hesitate to ask.
That's right.
So to hesitate means to be nervous about something or to maybe not do it because you're uncomfortable. So, you know, Marco, I want to ask you something, but I'm not sure if I want to ask you. Maybe you'll be angry or... So I'm hesitating.
Right.
Okay, the verb here is to hesitate.
You have doubts.
I have doubts. And so he says, don't hesitate to contact me. That means any questions, any issues, please call me.
Okay, very good. And Mr. Parsons said that they are finishing the short list of interviews tomorrow. So what does it mean, a short list?
Well, a short list is something we talk about during the interview process because the interviewer, so in this case, Mr. Parsons, will have a long list of people who want the job. And maybe after the first interview, he will cut the list down to a very small number of people, 10 or 15. And that is called the short list. So those are the people who did well on the first interview, but who maybe should come back for a second or third interview.
That's right. Okay. Very good. So a lot of great things there. Why don't we take a break? Let's go back and listen to the dialogue. Let's see what Mr. Parsons and Rebecca said. And we'll be back with some really good phrases that you can close off an interview with.
Well, Rebecca, is there anything else you need to know for now?
I don't think so, Mr. Parsons. I think you have covered all the main points for me.
Okay, well, listen. Here's my business card with my mobile number. If any other questions spring to mind, don't hesitate to contact me. Of course, you can also call Miss Childs, too.
Great. When can I expect to hear from you?
Well, we are finishing the short list interviews tomorrow, so we will certainly have a decision made by early next week. Miss Childs will call you to discuss more on Monday or Tuesday. How does that sound?
That sounds perfect. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me, Mr. Parsons.
The pleasure's all mine, Rebecca.
I hope to hear from you very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, Rebecca. Goodbye.
All right, we're back. So now let's take a look at those phrases we mentioned on Fluency Builder.
Fluency builder.
So let's go back to the beginning where Mr. Parsons is talking about questions that Rebecca might have. And so Mr. Parsons says, if any other questions spring to mind, don't hesitate to contact me. So this phrase, spring to mind, is very interesting. What does this mean?
Well, basically, if something springs to your mind or springs to mind, it means that it comes very suddenly and quickly into your mind. It just pops into your head.
Wow, so to spring, or springs in this case, is like jumping. So something hits your mind very quickly. It comes into your mind very quickly. So, I don't really have any ideas, Marco, for that party next week, but, if anything springs to mind, you should let me know.
Okay. So if you have any sudden ideas or anything you suddenly remember, that's what it means to spring to mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so taking a look at these expressions that Rebecca used when she's leaving. For example, you know that you finished the interview, and a typical question that you want to make is, when can I expect to hear from you?
This is a great question at the end of an interview because it's basically a way of saying, listen, I'm interested in this job. Mm-hmm. When will you call me about it? Mm-hmm. And so the phrase, when can I expect to hear from you, means, when will you tell me your decision?
That's right. But it's a lot more polite and formal and better than saying, when are you going to call me?
Yeah, you would never say that in an... Well, you wouldn't want to say that in an interview because it makes you sound desperate, like you really need the job. Mm-hmm. In this case, when can I expect to hear from you? It's like, oh, well, I hope that you'll get in touch with me.
That's right. Okay. And well, he explained that they're shortlisting everything and that they will be in touch with her very soon. And she said, wow, that sounds perfect. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me.
Okay, so this phrase, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me, is very long. Mm-hmm. But you know what thank you very much means. The key here is for taking the time to do something. Now, what does this mean? What's another way we can use this?
It's basically saying thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk to you. I know you're very busy and I know you don't have a lot of time. So thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me.
Right, so you could even use this with a teacher at school. You have a question, your teacher is busy, but your teacher makes some time to meet with you. You say, hey, listen, professor, or listen, teacher, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me.
Mm-hmm. You're just demonstrating that you appreciate the effort and the time.
And you're being very polite.
That's right. Okay. And now the last phrase. When Rebecca is leaving the room, they're shaking hands maybe, and Rebecca says, I hope to hear from you very soon.
You can say, I hope to hear from you soon. But in this case, she's saying, listen, I really want this job. She doesn't want to say, call me tomorrow. She says, I hope to hear from you soon. I hope that this works out, that I get the job.
Right. So she's basically demonstrating a lot of interest, saying, well, I really like the job and I really would like for you to call me and give me good news. So I hope to hear from you soon.
Exactly. So let's listen to today's dialogue one more time, and we'll be back in a moment to talk a little bit more about how to end an interview.
Well, Rebecca, is there anything else you need to know for now?
I don't think so, Mr. Parsons. I think you have covered all the main points for me.
Okay, well, listen. Here's my business card with my mobile number. If any other questions spring to mind, don't hesitate to contact me. Of course, you can also call Miss Childs, too.
Great. When can I expect to hear from you?
Well, we are finishing the short list interviews tomorrow, so we will certainly have a decision made by early next week. Miss Childs will call you to discuss more on Monday or Tuesday. How does that sound?
That sounds perfect. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me, Mr. Parsons.
The pleasure is all mine, Rebecca.
I hope to hear from you very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, Rebecca. Goodbye.
So this is a great way of ending an interview. Rebecca did a really good job. And I think there are a couple of suggestions or tips that you would like to give our users.
Yeah, well, one of them is don't, at the end of the interview, ask the person if you have the job. Mm-hmm. They'll say, we will be in touch, or thank you so much for coming in. But if they don't say, we would really like to have you join this company, then you probably shouldn't ask. You should say, when can I expect to hear from you? Mm-hmm. That's more polite. Because I think a lot of times if you didn't get the job, it makes the interviewer feel very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But also it's just a polite thing to do. So be careful with that. And I've also been told from people in business that if you do receive a job offer, mm-hmm. don't accept right away. Say, I will think about it, and I'll get back in touch with you.
Oh, okay. Kind of like a strategy maybe to better negotiate the terms and conditions.
Exactly. So you want to take that information, you want to go home, you want to think about it, talk about it with your wife or your husband, and decide, is this something I want? And then you can contact the employer.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. And also, I think it's not a wise thing to call or contact the employer asking if you've got the job or asking if they have any news yet, because I think that can be a little bit annoying.
But if they say, we will be in touch on Tuesday, and it's a week later and they never got back to you, send a follow-up.
Of course.
A follow-up is an email or a letter or even a phone call where you say, listen, I'm really glad I got to meet you today. I hope that we have the opportunity to work together in the future. Please be in touch. Sincerely, and then your name.
Kind of like a reminder.
It's a reminder, like, I want the job. Here's my information. Let's do this.
Or at least if I didn't get the job, let me know that I didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so a lot of great advice here, great things coming. And we'll be back again with another series. We're going to have a presentation series, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. And if you have any other questions or comments, we're always at englishpod.com where you can find us.
We'll see you there. Bye, guys.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Be remembered. Comes to mind. Spring to mind. To stop before you do something. Hesitate. Think something will probably happen. Expect. List of people or items most likely to be chosen. Short list. Does that seem good to you? How does that sound?
Let's try that faster.
Think something will probably happen. Expect. Be remembered. Comes to mind. Spring to mind. To stop before you do something. Hesitate. Does that seem good to you? How does that sound? List of people or items most likely to be chosen. Short list.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Spring to mind. I'd love to help you with an idea for the ad campaign, but nothing springs to mind. Spring to mind. Now, this is a brainstorming session, so just call out whatever springs to mind. Spring to mind. If any further comments or suggestions spring to mind, please do give me a call. Hesitate. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to ask. Hesitate. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me if I can be of any assistance. Hesitate. George was about to say something else, but he hesitated, and the opportunity passed. Expect. It was lovely to meet you, Sarah. When can we expect to see you again? expect, John, can I expect to see the finished report by Friday? Expect, when can we expect to hear your decision, Miss Walsh? Shortlist, we've shortlisted 3 candidates for the position. Shortlist, well, I made the shortlist, but I still have to add 2 more interviews if I want the job. Shortlist, the Russian dancer was shortlisted for the role, but in the end, they chose someone else. Johnny, if you're very good this morning, I'll take you out for ice cream. How does that sound? Let's go over the Anderson account first, then move on to the Jones account. How does that sound? I suggest we start our trip in Beijing, then travel to Tianjin, and from there to Qingdao. How does that sound to you?